Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Convo, folks. Thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of Constellation here with the Last Stand Media crew. I'm your host, Digster Moriarty, and I welcome you. We welcome you. Who's we? Joining me today, I have a very exciting group of people who I think, Hogan and I were just discussing this, I've yet to be on a podcast with as a specific foursome. So in other words, I never sat with this particular grouping of people, which is still happening on these shows, which I think is pretty fascinating because pound for pound, there's not that many of us, you know? So do the math, kind of cool. Anyway, without further ado, let me introduce you to my co-conspirators today, none of which really need an introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. Ladies first, everybody's favorite sister-in-law. I still love her, even though she doesn't like A Link to the Past. Mama Micah Moriarty.
And I want to say it's not that I didn't like it. The difficulty spike way too high. I got the 3 pendants. I got the special sword. I went to the Dark World. I played an hour in that first dungeon to get that first crystal. The difficulty really just ratchets up so dramatically from that intro to there that it's like, okay. I just didn't want to do it. But you mentioned that this is a unique grouping of people. And of course, like in the sports world, they call it like a scoreagami when you have like a unique sports score at the end of a game. And that's something. Oh, well, and so it's crazy that we still get them. Like we had one this football season. It's like we've been playing this game for how many years and we're still having unique ending scores. And yeah, as you mentioned, there's not a ton of us. We don't have a very deep bench to work with here, but we do still have unique combinations that have not been done before.
That is fascinating. I never thought of that before. You know what they remind? I've been watching my Yanks. Shout out! They just won a division series in 4 games. Sorry for the Royals, but got a little heated last night. But anyway, benches cleared last night. It was kind of exciting. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you guys with baseball talk. We did that. Colin and I did that last week. But isn't they're always bringing that up, especially when you have seasoned guys like Bob Costas or something. And I'm pretty sure they just know the game so well backwards and forwards that they have statistics for these things in their brains, and they'll just pull out stuff like that. You know, like this guy did this thing and it's never been done before, and that's still happening, which is kind of fascinating. You know what I mean? Like no one's hit no Yankee has ever hit 3 triples in Kansas City in October. Like it's all this crazy. It's maddening because it's going to go on forever if you break it down to that degree. But
I do like it when they bring out stats that have 16 different qualifiers on them.
Yes, exactly. Somebody, it was on Around the NFL last year. One of the guys mentioned it's like at a certain point, these aren't records. They're just stats because they're like everything's a record. Technically, every single thing every player does is a record of their personal work. And he's like, at a certain point, you can't keep calling these things records when, it has 10 different qualifiers of it happened this day at this quarter in this minute. And it's like, it's not a record. It's just a stat, because every single thing can be measured these days and compiled on the computer and you'll never forget any of it.
I love
like
those.
The Guinness Book.
I follow a number of social media accounts that are like the PR for these leagues.
Yes.
And after every day of sporting activity, there'll be one that's like, this is the first time the third batter in the order has hit for 2 doubles on a Thursday in October. And it's like, fantastic. I was around for that.
Isn't that funny? And I'm in the same breath, I'm annoyed by it, but also fascinated, which makes me, in good company because I think we're all nerdy that way.
It's cool. We're always making history.
Listen, let me move on. I hope he doesn't mind me saying it this way, but I thought of this and I said, for this introduction, this really is LSM's free spirit, the wild card. Pound for pound, I'm going to say it. fighting words, the most entertaining and the most fun that we have to offer. Let me put it this way. Remember the beer commercial? Fuck that dude. This is the most interesting man in the world. Gene Park, everybody.
It's funny. I knew that intro wasn't for me. And I also think of Gene as the most interesting person in the world.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for the intro. First of all, good to see you, Dagan. I know you were on last week, but it's been a couple months.
It has.
So a lot of people have missed you. A lot of our listeners have missed you. I've always seen that every time Colin was on. They were like, oh, I thought this was the one that Dagan was going to be back on, you know? So I'm very, very happy to see you again. I was very excited to do this show because, yeah, this is an interesting makeup. As to what you said, you know, I always hear that. Here's the thing. I've always heard that like all my life throughout, but it's always been in the small ponds, right? Because I'm originally from Guam. So when I'm in Guam, and there's only 150,000 people there. People said, you are the most interesting person on this island. And I'm like, well, you know, it's this island though, you know, there's only 150,000 people, you know, can't be that hard, you know? And then I went to Hawaii, and then, you know, a lot of people in Hawaii, you know, this is embarrassing. I did not like this label. I did not like being called this, but a lot of people called me the Hugh Hefner of Hawaii. I did not like it. I don't like being compared to him. I don't think that was accurate at all. I didn't have a house where women would come by and just hang out all the time. You know, like individually, yes, you know, but not in a group setting. Well, actually, sometimes that did happen. So.
You're not helping your case, Gene. Yeah. Hawaii half over here.
It's the charisma.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I would, you know, there was that hotel in Turtle Bay Resort, and that was a hotel that was featured in Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, so I love that movie.
That hotel was my former client, so I always used to get free nights there at the resort. Beautiful resort. You can go on horseback riding and shit like that. You know.
Wow.
And yeah, I did used to just invite like gaggles of women up there to hang out and stay with me and dance with me. So that was fun. I do see on the subreddit a repeat topic. Is Gene a pathological liar? Or I'm tired of Gene's lying. Which is funny because in one of the responses in earlier threads, people have been fact checking me, which I appreciate. That's good.
Oh, what?
That's excellent. That's good. I appreciate it. Welcome in. But people have fact checked me and they say, well, a lot of his claims do seem to be backed up. You know, there is record of him being a beauty pageant judge. And then there is this public radio show on cable access in Hawaii run by a beautiful friend of mine, Willow. She's a dancer and artist. And she refers to me on the show as a ladies' man. So they're like, well, you know, like he seems to be known as that already, you know? And you know, like I saw people like pouring doubts on my birthday party that I had at the Trump Waikiki that had a fireworks show and that was sponsored by Bacardi. I usually only talk about things that you can see on my Instagram. So go to Instagram.com/Gene Park, scroll down a couple of years, and you'll find my 33rd birthday party at the Trump Hotel. You know, with the model that was given to me. You know,
that's just
that was offered up to me.
Gene.
You know?
Don't mind the haters, dude. Seriously,
that's okay. You know, I get that some of my stuff seems unbelievable, you know, especially given, you know, like, you know, I am a nerd, you know, but that's always what made me that has always been part of my image. That is the image that I want to cultivate. I realize that I look like a gamer nerd or someone who would probably be working at an accounting firm, you know. That's the bit. That's the bit.
It's a bit, but it's not a bit because it's genuine. It's
not a bit.
Magic.
Yeah, because people always enjoy that image of me being like a well put together, clean guy in glasses, and I'm at the club, you know, with $1,500 bottle of Grey Goose for whatever reason.
Rain.
You know.
Making it rain, of course.
Yeah, just making it rain and then being surrounded by women. That was the bit, but I made the bit work, you know.
There's like the maroon robe and the physical trappings and being surrounded by blondes and that Hugh Hefner, but I think they're calling up the charisma, right? Like the living like this full life. What I love what you said, which I think really sums you up, Gene, is that you could see how you stacked up as the most interesting person. As you say, going from a small pond, right, Guam, to Hawaii, to the lower 48, DC, big city. It's like being the valedictorian. It's like, yeah, but how would I stack up to the valedictorian of that school? How would I be?
Yeah.
And you've just, you maintain, dude, you should be in those commercials. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
I know I'm a little biased.
I
but
mean, it was always funny in Guam too. Like, senators would see me and they're like, the ubiquitous Gene Park, Bob Klitze, Senator Bob Klitze, a Republican, used to say it all the time. And then the former speaker, he'll be holding like hearings, and he would be citing my reporting all the time. And then one time, this director of an agency was like, pardon me for the record, but who is Gene Park? And then the speaker was like, "Who the fuck do you think is Gene Park?" And then that became like my go-to like saying. Like it was like my sitcom saying, like, "Who the fuck is Gene Park?" And that was actually my MySpace name for several years. Who the fuck is Gene Park?
Now a sitcom.
I think we have our T-shirt. Our T-shirt now.
Yeah, but that was all the way back on Guam. Where nobody in the rest of the world knew me, but on Guam, I was the most popular person for sure.
See, I have never been the most popular person on any given island. So
same, Rick.
Hey, to me, the entire planet is just another island.
There you go.
That sums up. That's a great. That sums Gene up for me.
Yeah.
Last but not least, listen. You know what I thought of with this one? And I'm going to say, I was just telling Rick, watched a recent podcast that he did with Kyle, Sacred Plus. This was probably maybe a month ago, no longer than that. Great conversation, just the two of them. It was awesome. It was riveting. I was telling Rick, my attention span is such that I'd never tune in for a full anything anymore. And I was riveted by that conversation. Listened to it back to front to back, A to Z, finished the entire thing. And then I realized, in watching that and listening to that episode, I realized I'm a little jealous to say this. Think Rick, this man is Colin's favorite. I really think pound for pound, this is Colin's favorite dude in LSM. Rick Hogue, just Hogue if you're nasty. What's up, my friend? Haven't seen you in a year. We were just saying, haven't seen him since Micah and Colin's wedding reception.
Yeah, that was the last time we saw each other.
Yeah.
I am very happy to be here. I missed you in San Diego. So this is going to be a good time.
Oh, this will be fun. This is going to be really fun. This is a great group of people. And you know what's extra cool about this? The variety of topics. Chef's kiss today. Really nice variety of topics. In fact, you guys had me a little stumped with where to start, but I'm gonna call out the first one, and if you want to, I'll call out the order for you, so you're prepared to go. Gene, I love yours. It's a nice lighthearted one, and it's a great way to start. After that, we'll go to Micah, then we'll go to Hogan. All back cleanup today, in a number 4 spot. If you guys are ready, Gene, I would love to launch into your topic.
Let's go.
How, this is one that I don't know how we've not covered, but I don't think we have.
Yeah. Well, it's, so my topic is our day jobs, and it is a lighter one because, the world is heavy right now. And sometimes we do talk about heavy existential and existentially terrible, topics on Constellation or on a lot of different topics. I mean, fuck, Colin Moriarty is always talking about how sad he is, right? So, let's talk a little bit something about that's a little bit lighter, and it's our day jobs. Here at Last Stand Media, we are special in that pretty much most of us, besides like Dustin and Ben and I don't know who else. I guess Chris are full time, and I think that's part of what makes our company, our network, so diverse and so interesting. But also so stable because we're not completely depending. We're not suckling off Colin's teat, so to say. But it is an interesting balance. I do consider this my second job. So I just want to talk about our day jobs and how that might take up our day. For me right now, obviously I'm a reporter at the Washington Post, and we aren't really required to go into the office every day, which is nice. I actually live just a 12-minute block or 12-minute walk away from the newsroom in the Washington Post here on K Street, the famous K Street in Washington D.C. Rick might know it as like Lobbyist Row or whatever.
I do. I was going to ask you whether you're going to become a lobbyist.
Yeah, hey, you know what? Why not? There was a famous lobbyist. God, I'm totally forgetting his name. The one that had that restaurant, Jack something. But he was known for working heavy on Guam, and that was really my first exposure to the idea of a lobbyist. I always thought of it as someone corrupt because that guy was apparently corrupt or whatever. But and as I've learned over years, it's a little bit more nuanced their role.
I don't think it's inherently corrupt, but it does appear to be appealing to corrupt folks or people susceptible to corruption.
Yeah, it's kind of like public relations, because public relations is meant to just represent the company, and if the company is evil, then that spin won't be taken in quite great ways. But yeah, K Street is lobbyists and lawyer street, and also the street of the Washington Post. So I do go into the office fairly regularly, maybe twice a week, sometimes once a week only, which is funny because I go in and there's still barely anyone there. That's still the after effects of the pandemic, where a lot of people are still working at home. Like yesterday, I went to the office and there were some big meetings, right? And then it looks like everyone in the office is in those meetings because all the rest of the desks are empty. So it is interesting to see a lot of people just that work at home mentality really seem to have stuck, and for a lot of people. But what's interesting about my job is that on Tuesdays we record Punching Up. I actually have my editors meeting, my direct report editors meeting on that Tuesday afternoon, which I should be moving. But the funny thing though is that my editors are always swamped and busy, that we usually just reschedule the meeting anyways. So it hasn't been it has never been an issue actually. And then whenever it does, there's only been like one or two times where I'm like, oh yeah, give me like 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap the show up because Punching Up is a relatively shorter show.
Yeah.
Once the Switch 2 is announced, I'm gonna have to rethink the scheduling. I'm probably gonna have to ask work to reschedule that meeting. But for me, I didn't want this job here at LSM to interrupt what I do at the Washington Post. And for the most part, it hasn't. I do a lot of work at night, which behooves me because that's how I've been trained for pretty much my whole life. Never been a morning kid. I hated getting up in the morning to go to school. Always cranky all the time. When I went to college, I thought, oh well, I got up at fucking 7:45 a.m. every day. I could do that as an adult. Without my mom waking me up. Turns out I could not. And I ended up failing all the classes that were in the morning my first semester. This was a math class and two math classes I failed, actually. It was two math classes. I just failed them, and they were both in the morning because I thought, oh yeah, people are sharper in the morning. No, that's not true. That's not true for me. I am sharper at night or in the afternoon. So after that catastrophe of a first semester in college, I was like, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm only going to state school because state school. I didn't go to an Ivy League or anything like that. I had no student debt because my tuition was $1,000 a year. Like, can you imagine that? Right?
That's awesome.
Like $1,000 a semester, but still, still super cheap.
Oh my God.
And then so I started taking classes in the afternoon, towards the evening, and I did just fine. I retook the math classes, and I did just fine. And then I moved back to Guam because I could not find a job in California. So I did not want to move back to Guam, but I did. I worked at the Guam paper, and in there I ended up getting I was a morning reporter for about 8 months, and then I threatened to leave because I never wanted to move to Guam. So I wanted to, as I'm moving, I'm just going to move, right? And then they promoted me to assistant editor. I was 22 years old. I was the youngest editor in all of the Gannett network. The Gannett network includes USA Today and a bunch of other
Holy shit.
podunk small newspapers, including Guam, and like places like Yakima or whatever, in Washington State. Actually, I don't think they own Yakima, but something like that. Podunk towns across the U.S. But I was the youngest editor, so I stayed. I was like just fine. But then I had the night shift editor job. So I would close out the paper. I would come into work at 2:00 in the morning and leave at around 11 or midnight, or probably usually 1:00 or 2:00, because I was the guy seeing the paper to bed. And then so like it was a lot of fun. We would write the headlines. This is way back in the early 2000s. So I'm actually still using like actual print paper and putting it on like a sheet of iron that way you print it out and everything like that. This was the like I felt like a fucking blacksmith. It was awesome, But all that training, and then I moved to Hawaii, where I became a morning reporter, and then I became a night shift reporter again. So I keep getting stuck into the night shift. So here I am at the Washington Post, and I can barely function at 10:00 in the morning. So fortunately, a lot of people at the Washington Post also seem to do that. When I first started working at the Post, I was like, well, this is a new job, this is DC. I got to come into work early, So I started coming to work at 9, which I thought was early enough. Walk in the newsroom, no one's around. Everyone walks into work at 10, which is interesting, which is fascinating. But I think part of us being part of the East Coast means that we can wait a little longer, because we are first in the time zones.
That's right, yeah.
And then whatever news we will break, everyone in California would have to follow up, So yeah, going back to what I was saying, a lot of what I do at work is done at night. Like I'm writing a lot of my reviews at night. I just finished my review for Silent Hill 2,
which is great, by the way, Gene. I love that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh man, I got to read that.
Yeah, go read my review on Silent Hill 2. I really had a good time writing it. I had a hard time writing it because it was much more negative when I started out.
Oh shit!
Once I got closer to the end, I started to kind of appreciate what the game was doing, the unique things it was doing, and that's a lot of what I say. I say that Silent Hill 2 is different. It is a different game. It is more combat heavy. So I think when people say, "Oh, Silent Hill 2 shouldn't have good combat," I get that because Silent Hill 2 did not have good combat, and combat was not the point of the game. And now the combat is a little bit more of a point, you do have to dodge and weave and it's kind of like a little mini punch out game where you're playing with the mannequins or whatever like that. And that's what keeps it exciting. So this is a different game. But a lot of that writing was taking place at night. I was up until 5 a.m. Writing that piece and editing it, because I was still playing the game and I was like, oh, well, I got to write about this stuff. Oh yeah, I totally forgot about this stuff. And going back to my notes, but yeah, there's a lot of things I forget to write in my notes. But a lot of my work is happening at night, as a result of this, but also as a result of the pandemic. Again, when I had cancer, my sleep schedule was all screwed up. I had no schedule. I was just sleeping whenever I wanted and waking up whenever I wanted. So that was 2 years ago, and it's been a hard time for me adjusting back into a regular societal, I guess, schedule as a result. I'm wondering, Rick, if that's something that you've experienced, because you and we're brothers in near-death experiences, right?
Yes.
That was a little too close to each other for comfort.
It was, yeah. It felt simultaneous.
Huh?
I said it felt simultaneous.
It did. It was weird. I was so worried about you. I was so worried about me. And it's remarkable that we're both here on the cast, and we're thankful for that. But yeah, let's start with you, Rick. Like, how has well, let me finish what my day looks like. It's a lot of meetings mostly, at the Washington Post, and that's always been the case even in the 9 years I've been there. That's really the most of it, because the Washington Post is a very reporter-led organization, as opposed to the New York Times, which is very editor and management-led. But at the Washington Post, they tend to kind of leave the reporters alone, and that could be to its own detriment. But it is also liberating too, and I think that's what I enjoy the most. And I am grateful. My friend and former colleague Taylor Lorenz just resigned from the Washington Post because she is tired of the legacy media. and she wants to become a creator. She wants to become a news creator, basically, right? And I've always aligned with her on everything. So it's been interesting to see. Well, she says, I don't want to be a full-time writer. I want to be a creator, right? And then I see a lot of discourse about like, well, I want to be a full-time writer. I don't want to have to become an internet personality, you know? For me, working at the Washington Post and working at Last Stand Media does give me that kind of interesting perspective and leeway into, and as I said, when I announced my hiring, when Colin hired me, I said, this is me dipping my toe into the creator economy, getting to know, working with like folks like Dustin and Jimmy Champagne on thumbnails, and getting to know the behind the scenes of a lot of what we do here at Last Stand Media is giving me an even deeper appreciation for it. But I also think that folks like, Taylor Lorenz sucks up a lot of attention, naturally, because she's a very good self promoter. This is not something that I'm like looking down on her for, because, as I've mentioned, and as Dagan has said, I am a good self promoter too. This is a skill I appreciate. But I do think that the mainstream media doesn't seem to understand the broader scope of the media landscape, because it's really Colin and Greg that started the whole, well, I'm leaving media to become a creator thing,
Yeah.
And I feel like they don't get enough credit for that, and I feel like they don't really talk about it that much. Like Greg is a very relentless self-promoter too, but he doesn't talk about how much impact he had on the media. So there's a bit of humility there that I think is a little unnecessary, I think Colin is a little bit more speaks a little bit more about that fact, because he talks about like, oh, I Easy Allies was inspired by me, and Second Wind sought me for advice, and I think that's proper and correct and true, so. But going back to what I said, yeah, I appreciate Last Stand Media for helping me, kind of saddle both things, because the Washington Post does allow me to become a full-time writer. And I do enjoy, I am privileged to enjoy that, and one thing is that, some people have said, Gene, you seem to write a lot less than everyone else in games media, because I write maybe 4 times a month, if that,
Okay.
Maybe 5 or 6 times a month, right? There are 4 weeks in a month, of course, right?
It depends on the month,
Huh?
but it depends on the month. But I'll lawyer up on that.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't really seem to understand about the media. It is actually embarrassing if one person is writing 2 or 3 articles a day. That is not good work. That is not safe work. That is not comfortable work. I used to write 5 articles a day, at the Guam paper, 5 articles a day. The entire front page would just say by Gene Park, by Gene Park, by Gene Park. I was running all over the fucking island, covering all kinds of goddamn murders and military shit and business shit, and just putting that on a paper, And I earned $22,000 a year for that.
Wow.
So other games media folks who are writing 3-4 times, maybe they're getting paid well, and I hope they are. But that is more work that they should not be doing. They should be focusing more on quality work, which is where the conversation about AI gets interesting, right? At the Washington Post, we have been using AI to write articles for years now. Years. Nobody knows about this, and we promote it too. We promote it proudly, but nobody has canceled us for this, because like our sports section is parts of it are written by AI, because we're freeing up our columnists to do more, to do deeper analysis, as opposed to just covering gamers, like just games, like the local games or whatever,
Yeah.
where people just need to score, that could be handled by AI, So when like a game announcement happens, I don't write about that, I don't cover announcements, and I'm grateful for that. I'm glad, when Halo announces that they're going to become Halo Studios, I didn't write that, even though I'm a Halo super fan, I kind of wish that I had a capacity to write something about it, but it's tough because I am the only person. At the Washington Post, we just don't churn out that type of content. We're not going to write several articles we're not going to ask our reporters to write several articles a week. That's
Yeah.
not,
It doesn't lend itself to quality, like you said.
no, it doesn't. And the great
model.
thing is, though, is that I just did a story on Jason Schreier's book, Play Nice, his tell-all tome on Blizzard Entertainment. And I did that for the book section. And that took maybe just like a couple hours interviewing Jason, of course, reading the goddamn book, and then writing the piece, which took about maybe like an hour or two, real straightforward piece. But I got $300 extra for that, which is nice, and that's part of the union contract that we have, that if a reporter in a different section writes for a different section, they should get paid extra for that extra work. So I did do that, even though it was still with MIB. So that was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of largely, the haziest picture of what my day looks like. But yeah, again, going back to Rick, I'm wondering if your schedule has been fucked up since you got sick or anything, and what your day looks like. A lawyer's day is very diverse, as I've learned throughout the years of hiring lawyers, and also my sister being a lawyer, Michigan law graduate and everything.
Go blue.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Rick, take it away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Certainly last year, coming out of the hospital, coming out of the ICU, I was falling asleep in chairs.
Yeah.
Right. Like I was sitting up trying to play, I think it was like Fire Emblem Engage.
Yo.
Coming home from the hospital and then just waking up 4 hours later with my characters in the same dialogue scene, and it throws you completely. And to me, it made me feel bad that I was not properly spending my time for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I work to try to get my schedule back into something that I would recognize. I use a lot of alarms on a lot of things. Certainly waking up, that's kind of a more traditional use of an alarm clock, but I also use it for 15-minute warnings for every meeting and every call. And I've had a strange kind of combination between my day job and my internet job since I started doing internet stuff in 2018, which really sprang out of wanting to tell people about my firm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I get out of law school, it's 2005. I get a big law job in venture capital, mergers and acquisitions. And I'm working at a huge law firm in Michigan. And I wind up going to a different huge law firm in Michigan when my mentor, the partner above me, goes to start a new office for this other law firm. And so I really only know big law from 2005 to 2016. And I set a goal for myself that I want to make partner. And in law, in big law at least, that's billing hours, right? So lawyers bill for the time they spend on a matter. And in big law, I think both firms probably had a similar minimum number, which was about 1,800 hours billed, which if you do the math at home is a lot of billing hours. But to be honest with you, that minimum is you're only going to get a warning and not immediately fired at most of these places.
Oh, wow.
And so like by the time I'm striving to make partner, I'm doing 2,700 to 3,000 hours billed, which isn't worked, right? You can't bill for your time in the toilet. You can't bill for the time figuring out what it is you're supposed to be doing. And so there's a lot of work done. I basically am fully acclimated to it in my brain. Like I'm not thinking of it as a huge burden on me. I would find out later in conversations with my wife and my first daughter that they viewed it as more of a burden than I did at the time. And there's sad stories that my daughter will tell you about waiting for the Christmas lights to automatically come on because she knew that I would have a chance to come home then. And it's like, okay, but I've given this story on my channel, but long story short, I have a conversation just before I make partner at this large law firm with the partners that are talking to me about what it is that I'm doing and what it is that they like and don't like about how I'm being a lawyer. And the conversation winds up saying something like, well, Rick, you can either choose to be a family man or a firm man. And if you want to be a partner here, you're going to have to make the right choice.
So archaic.
And I remember going into my mentor partner's office after that meeting saying like, all right, so I'm going to stick around here for a little while. I want to make sure I can get this thing done because it's a goal of mine and I want to get it done. But I'm probably going to be planning an exit. And so I'm made partner in 2014. 2016, I leave to start what was then a firm with another partner of mine that we had been planning for a year to go and create to have a certain amount of safety net with various different practice groups. So if you've never hired a lawyer, you don't know how lawyers operate at all. The law is a giant field, right? It has two major separation points. The first of which is litigation and essentially business transactions, private lawyering and lawyering in court. And one thing I always tell people, I tell clients, I tell family and friends, is that I'm not the guy that you see on Law and Order. The last time I was in court was in law school for the class that is teaching you how court works, where you go in and you observe some court. But I don't do that. I help people get contracts. I tell folks that I help businesses get formed and funded. I work on corporate form. I work on taxation structures a little bit, but primarily only in support of accountants and people that are specialists in tax.
Okay.
And then ultimately, if we're really lucky, I help you exit. I help you sell your company and get that money for your Tahitian vacation or the island that you want to buy. And we've had some good luck with exits in the past. But like in 2016, I leave with that partner. As it turns out, that partner doesn't love the life separated from the salary, the paycheck, and the bigger law firm life. And I don't have any issue with that. You really don't know until you get out there how you're going to feel about just constantly having to figure out how you're going to keep the lights on or how you're going to feed your family.
Sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Sorry to interrupt, but that's where I'm at in terms of like the journalist creator thing. It's like I'm used to having a salary. I kind of need a boss, because I'm not a very organized person.
That's hard.
And naturally, of course, I need the health insurance too. So that's probably the biggest.
That's the cost that kills you, I'll tell you.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest thing. So yeah, jumping off on your point, keeping the lights on. I do not want to worry about having to come up with $20,000 to have surgery. When I saw the price of some of my procedures,
oh man, dude,
I was like, I straight up would die. I could not afford this. I'd be dead.
Yeah.
I guess have a GoFundMe or whatever like that. But fuck that. That's bleak.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah,
we wouldn't let you die, Gene.
It is bleak. No, I feel constantly grateful that my wife and sister.
I appreciate that though, Micah. Yeah. I feel like like you would not let me die. If I said like, guys, I need $20,000, so I'm gonna die.
We'll rally the troops. We'll start selling some popcorn, some Girl Scout cookies. We're gonna get it done.
Oh, I'm in for the bikini car wash, Gene. I'm gonna get you. Right?
You know what? I should have had that.
There you go.
Yeah. Next time
we'll say it's for the Hugh Hefner of Hawaii.
Yes.
There it is.
Next time my mom's dying, I would definitely arrange that because what I got to lose,
You don't even have to be dying. We could just do this to get LASIK or something. I want LASIK. All right.
I can't get LASIK, actually. I can't get LASIK.
But I want it. So we can fund it that way.
Yeah. Fund it. Yeah.
Well, I mean it doesn't
all the
feel
women
good.
in LSM. It's going to be you, Micah. And I guess the guys too. It might as well just be a male wash,
Absolutely.
Hey, no, I wasn't saying I wouldn't wear a bikini for this. Wash.
No, we're all in.
Hey, different strokes for different folks. I am so grateful. I feel bad because it needed to be done, but I'm so grateful for my sister and my wife putting together a GoFundMe when I was in the ICU.
Yeah.
Because as it turned out, we had insurance, we were covered, we had stuff that paid for a lot of the bills, but like we needed every penny of it to even get to this point in time with the lights on and the family fed, and
that's incredible.
That's no fun at all to say.
Yeah. So
but
going back to your partner, he kind of learned. So sometimes you got to learn that way, right?
Yeah. I don't resent it at all. It was really like moment one. It was very early on where it's like, this is clearly not going to work for me. Says my partner, and I say, okay, that's terrifying, but we'll figure out a way around this. And that's when Hogue Law came into being. Was that essentially I said, I don't want to go back to the law firm. We're going to do this on our own, which was not the way I'd set it up, right? Like, so one thing I definitely always want to convey as part of this story is like, the firm is successful. I think I have been successful, but like so many success stories, there are so many pitfalls on the way. I think people think that it's just, you get all the luck, you get all the breaks, you rocket ship to this particular point in time. And it's not the way it works. Like I was terrified when my partner left and I started this firm. But when I started it, one of the things that I wanted to do was to market it differently than just a smaller, cheaper version of my old firm. And I had seen to mirror Gene's point about Colin and Greg, and I also put Giant Bomb in that category, and the Easy Allies certainly, which is where I was a like a sponsor, right? An advertiser on their podcasts.
Oh, I never knew that.
Oh yeah, so I wanted to market the
Before
firm.
Reset Era canceled you.
Well, Reset Era canceled me when I started talking with Colin.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
That's on brand.
But yes, so in 2016, I start Hogue Law, and Easy Allies has a Patreon tier that allows you to get an ad in their podcast. I had a premise that all professionals, not just game reviewers or not just various people in different industries, needed to be closer to the clients that they wanted to serve. That personality-driven connection was really moving the marketing forward, and that lawyering and lawyers in general were well behind the curve on this. And so I thought, okay, well, this is an opportunity in 2016 to go show somebody how this can work. And also because I don't have the pedigree now on my own of large law firm banner, which is how a lot of clients hire lawyers. It's like, okay, large law firm banner probably didn't hire dunces. We'll pay them their exorbitant fees and we'll bring you in. I don't have that. Let me have a video show that at least shows off what I think is intelligent conversations and takes on topics. And then I looked at that and said, all right, what do I want to talk about? It's going to be video games because that's an area that I'm already interested in. I think we can talk about business and contracts and specifics in a way that isn't offensive, isn't dragging in politics and a lot of extra passions. Now, little did I know, all of the extra passions live in gaming. And everything that I talk about with respect to gaming is by far the most controversial stuff on my channel or elsewise on my social media feeds, much more so than when I dissect, the Supreme Court's Dobbs opinion or whatever else that I'm talking about from a legal perspective. But that was the idea in 2016, was to go and say, all right, I'm going to sponsor Easy Allies, this group of goofballs in a California garage. And I also sponsored MGO Blog at the time, which is, I'm a big Michigan Wolverine fan. And MGO Blog is just a fantastic kind of athletic support analysis site. They were one of the first kind of early, really in-depth, deep dive analysis of Michigan football in particular, and then basketball and baseball and hockey. And I had been reading them, and all the lawyers at my office in Ann Arbor were also reading that website, and a bunch of the big clients. So I knew that this was kind of an open spot for reaching those people that were already in my area and that could be good clients. And so this whole thing as a marketing endeavor was really just kind of focused on making sure that people understood that they weren't hiring some random that barely passed the bar or didn't pass the bar off the street, when I respect the people that hang shingles, but it's really hard for clients to pick out what professional they're going to hire, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult for clients to even assess whether the contract you wrote was good, what exactly it is that you're doing, why they're paying you so much money to do it. And so I wanted to be able to get out there and hopefully have people root for me on a personality basis. Now, some of that worked. Some of that worked. Some of that wound up with internet drama, as it is wont to do. I also wound up doing analysis with what we colloquially call LawTube on some pretty big national cases. And that brought in its own kind of field of interest and is why I have a number of shows on my channel. But going back to the original point, because I somehow wound up over here, what do I do on a daily basis? As a lawyer, I wake up early. I do. Certainly when I was in Big Law, Gene, one of the things I tried to do was to get to the office before any of the senior partners so that they couldn't fully tell exactly when I was there. I was just always there. So that when I left at some inordinately early time for Big Law, like 6 or 6:30, 5, whatever, they wouldn't exactly be able to tell how long I had been there that day. That was a plan of mine. And so I was always in my office at 7 a.m. And then leaving at times indeterminate, depending on the workflow. But workflow really determines exactly what your day looks like as a lawyer every single time. So I will often get in early, check my emails, see if there's any fires that need to be put out with respect to client issues, and manage some of those, some of which will need direct legal action, some of which will need essentially more kind of assuaging of fears for clients that are concerned about something. And depending on the day, I'll go through that, and that'll take all morning, or I'll have meetings that are set up to talk with people about their legal issues. And then depending on what other news has happened and whether I want to try to make a video that day, I will make a video. Now, one thing I will say is that before the stroke, the entire channel in 2018 came into being when 2 deals of mine that were slated to end by the end of the calendar year got pushed to the next year. And so I had a bunch of free time, and nobody was likely to start a new deal in that window. And so I said, all right, what am I going to do with this free time? All right, I'm going to talk about, at that point in time, I was talking about things like the Spider-Man intellectual property and skins in the 2018 Spider-Man game and things of that nature. You can go look at the early days of virtual legality.
Wow.
But it lived in there. And then in the top of 2019, I was having difficulty kind of fitting in video creation with running the law firm and practicing law. And so I came up with a plan that basically said, I can't do a video unless I can do it what I called farm to table in 3 hours. Like the idea, the research, the setup, the taping, the editing, and the publishing, it had to be basically 3 hours in order to keep my day job.
I love that.
As it were.
Very
And
smart.
then after the stroke, it became immediately apparent that what I had been doing before was, one, really awesome. I'm really impressed with past Rick, but present Rick can't do that. President Rick says, no, that's not going to happen. If we try to make that same video we did in 3 hours before, it'd be 8 or 10 now. And so I had to change my entire system of what I do. So if you look at my channel, you'll see that I only basically do live streams of videos now and have conversations with people about the various topics.
Mm-hmm.
We just did one on the California law about the buy button. And then we have a section where people can ask questions. And certainly that helped ease some of it and helped me fit it into the legal day. But that's been the real trick for me both times, really, was first in 2018, 2019, figuring out how to do this at all. And then now post-stroke, figuring out how to do it with a version of myself that just tends to take longer to get things done.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm struggling with a story right now, and I have to keep apologizing because it's I'm just not going to work as hard or as fast as I used to. It's tough.
That is.
I was taken by what you said about how you fall asleep in the chair. I still do that sometimes, but I definitely did that a lot right after I recovered, and I was going through chemotherapy too. It was tough for people to understand. I had a girlfriend at the time, and we were playing NBA 2K together, which I never play, but I thought like, oh, she's here, and we should play. And then we started playing, and by the second quarter, I fell asleep.
Yeah.
I was engaged in a multiplayer game, and I just fell asleep in the chair, and she was astounded and a little annoyed. And I had to remind her, I'm not even, I think, a 60%, through. And that happens a lot. I have to be mindful of that, especially when I review games. Is the game so boring that it's putting me to sleep? And when that happened, I realized, no, I think I'm just fucking tired, and this actually is a me problem. So, which is strange because I tried playing Starfield Shattered Space this past week, and I'm better now, and I actually don't fall asleep when I game now. And then when I started Starfield Shattered Space, I went to the Oracle station, which everyone says is the best part of the game, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty good, interesting, cool atmosphere. Once I actually got to the fucking planet where all the bespoke and handcrafted adventures and storytelling is happening, I fell asleep right away too. I was like, dude, I think it's because I was bored, because they're telling me exposition about this planet, and it's like, oh, the 2 houses, blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, like. I think it's actually boring, when I'm playing a game. What game was I playing that I fell asleep on? That was not boring. I played games where I've fallen asleep and it was not boring. And I have to separate that.
And I have in the past stretched, right, where you're playing a game and you're trying to get to some point satisfaction, or beat a boss and it's 3 a.m. and
Sure.
you wake up and you're running against the digital wall. Like I've done that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely different, which is, the chair is just really comfortable.
Yeah,
And-
yeah. I have a nice, comfy, theater style chair there too from Valencia in Canada. It's very, very comfortable. I sleep in it all the time.
Yeah, but
yeah.
you know to avoid that chair when you're tired, right?
And
It's like one of those
Starfield,
strategies.
apparently.
Like, let me be uncomfortable. I'll sit upright in the wooden chair, right? I mean, that's what I do. I did it yesterday. I had to watch some tutorials on an animation software, and I was like, I'm not going to get through this if I'm comfortable. It's painful. Listen, there's a few things I want to say to you guys. First of all, this is fascinating because I wonder about this a lot, especially with my fellow podcasters on LSM, because moonlighting as a podcaster, right? And navigating our duties on 2 fronts, or maybe even multiple fronts. You got the day job, you got the pods, but then you're juggling in life stuff. Like you guys really hits home with talking about getting sick, then just other stuff also. Being all the things, being a parent, being a spouse, being a boyfriend, being a girlfriend, having a home. And then the little everyday things, going food shopping. How do you work it all in? How do you break it down? There's 2 things that strike me about the people I get to do this with, all of them, to a person. And that is, with the podcasting, it's a skill thing. Everybody I do it with is really good at it, even if it's not their day job, which is telling and striking, not only to the way Colin chooses the people he wants to work with, but just how genuinely good everybody is at doing it, but also the passion. Because podcasting is kind of hard. You know what I mean? It takes a lot up front. It takes a lot on the back end, and also just the energy to do it. And it's not as easy as you may think it is if you don't do it. I know a lot of people do it, but that says a lot. I think that's testimony to doing it when it's not your full-time job, especially because, you have to work it in. The other thing that you said, Rick, that I hate hearing about, but I know this exists, is that very archaic us or them mentality of the employer, basically creating the ultimatum of it's family or work, but it can't be both. It's very destructive. I understand that leads to success in business, but it leads to it could potentially lead to very unhappy people and dismantling lives. And I certainly, I know that would exist in legal. I know that would certainly exist in medical, very competitive fields. I see it in entertainment, which I have to deal with aging out on top of everything else, and in being able to commit the hours. A 20-year-old could do it a lot better than a 50-year-old because they could work 18 hours. You know what I mean? If I do that, my wife may leave me. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So
well,
it's the juggling.
And this year, 2024, I know I mentioned that I thought it was a weird year.
Yeah.
I've been thinking of 2023 as the physical recovery year for me, and 2024 is the mental recovery, because it's been very difficult to both be slower, to need more time to do things, and then to recognize that has to be okay. Right? Like part of me talking to my therapist and the various things that I've done in 2024 is kind of unwinding or changing the wiring of big law, which is all that I ever knew. And this is what work feels like. And this is how you should feel like it when you've accomplished enough to feel satisfied. And that, that's not the way that you should live your life, but also getting to the end point of having a good therapy session or coming to a good conclusion and saying, well, okay, but if I don't, is that enough? Is that enough for my family? Is that enough for the people that help support my channel? Is that enough for anything else that I think is important? Because if I'm going to say, all right, it's something that I should rest on, I should recover, and then I can give better time, that's great. But it still feels like you're not doing every possible thing that you can be doing for mission X or Y or Z. And so that's been something I've been working through all year. And one of the things that comes across as either as a Midwesterner, as many of my commenters like to blame me for, or for some other reason, is that I apologize a lot in 2024.
I hear that a lot. Not from you, but from that's a Midwestern thing.
I have been accused of, and rightfully so, starting every communication with "I'm sorry," because I legitimately am. One of the things that I have said after all of this is I cannot possibly be grateful enough for all the people that saved my life, all the people who helped support me financially and otherwise during this time. And like, I can't be grateful enough. And so anything less than saying I'm sorry or thank you feels like I'm not expressing the gratefulness that I should be at any given time. And that's my issue. That's not yours, but like that's part of this whole thing in 2024.
I think that speaks to your quality as a person, Rick. And I also think, for my part, you're doing a great job. And also I understand, you could kind of, with all the juggling, you're brushing up against your work ethic when you have a work ethic like yours. And that's tough, Micah, I want to hand this over to you because I'm particularly fascinated with you're very specific in that you're young, but you've already kind of lived a life in the fact that you've had careers. You were heavily involved in IT. You worked in factories before that and retail and did various things.
See, I didn't even know any about this.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be good. I'm just setting it up. I'm just
this is kind of why I chose the topic because I actually
it's good. This is good
because
stuff.
I want to hear more about Micah and what she did before too. But because Micah Colin talks quite a little bit a lot about what Micah does for the company, right? But
yeah, she has very specific duties.
Yeah, but let's let her speak for herself too.
Aside from please, Micah. I really want to hear from you about this because this is I feel like I could learn something.
Well, what I do, we'll start with what I do currently because it's a little more boring. And then I could talk a little more about the jobs I had in the past. Working for Last Stand Media started out with me managing Colin's calendar. But this was back when Colin used to do a lot of interviews with just random people from the industry. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it was like we did the Philip Mewson interview, interviewing just various people.
Oh my God, you had to email Philip Mewson.
Well, exactly. And so my job was coordinating, like, okay, what time zone are you in? What time can you do this? Getting it on Colin's calendar. That was my job when I first started, was getting all those guests, because originally Colin was doing so many Sacred Plus episodes that were these one-off interviews. And there was a lot to just, you had to do the rundown with each person, time zone, what times work for you. Okay, Colin can do this day. Can you do this day? It was a lot of back and forth just to get them on the board. And then also I'd be their point of contact if they had to reschedule. Colin still does interviews, but not as many these days. So while I still do plan those out for him, like most of what I'm doing for planning is I get all the Constellation guests every month. And for the audience, the way that works, because I do see criticisms of, we're having the same combination again. And it's like, I'm not picking the combinations. What I'm doing at the end of every month, I email everybody and I ask, which day can you do next month? Everybody picks a Friday.
That is true.
And the reason why, for example, Cog and Maddie often end up on the same episode. The reason being that they both often travel to industry events together. So they are gone at the same time. They are back at the same time. Their availability just usually lines up because they're going to PAX West together. They're going to a specific game event together. It is just one of those things of, yes, they often are linked together, but it's because of their availability. I'm not telling them, right? I'm not telling Gene, you're on the 10th. Yeah. It's like, no, Gene's telling me when he's available because as this topic goes into, you guys all have day jobs.
Yes.
And Gene also travels for work. You'll go to New York for various things. So Chris travels as well to some random, industry events and type deals. So I want to say it only because it's like, I'm not planning the guests out the way people think I am. Or when people are like, oh, they should do 4 random guests every time. And it's like, we could never do that because we don't have enough participants to do so. Like, we need to have basically at least one set chair every month as the host.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't work otherwise. But I'm primarily planning out the Constellation episodes, helping plan Sacred Plus as well. And then me being on the shows really only started with filling in for spoiler casts here and there. Like, only 1 or 2 people played this game. It's like, well, I played it. And that was a big part of how I started doing the shows at all, was getting into these spoiler casts on some of these games where not enough people in the company played it or just the availability wasn't there. And I'd be the third chair or, second chair, depending on how many of us played it. And I was terrified to do so. But those
Oh.
episodes were a little less intimidating because the Sacred Plus, being patron exclusive, typically, at least for a bit, was like, okay, you can get some feedback without the entire audience seeing it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my availability kind of morphed as we introduced punching up. And because at a maximum, I'm probably on no more than like 5 shows per month, really. So I'm not on a ton compared
Same.
to, of course, Colin and other guests.
Mm-hmm.
But with punching up, occasionally being on Summon Sign, my role oftentimes is being a fill-in person if somebody, ends up being sick or unavailable. And it's because I have other duties here, whereas like I do the merch and ship everything out.
Yes.
Whenever you order something from our shop, I'm packaging it, shipping it, working with Ben on creating new merch as well. But in my free
Folks,
time,
if I can just add one thing, running the merchandise shop is super not easy. It is very much the thing that looks like it should be simple on the outside that requires coordination of the manufacturing and the portal end and then the finance end, and it is no fun.
Yeah, shipping.
Yeah, it is. I was when I started doing even remotely anything merchandise wise, I immediately needed help, and Mrs. Hoglaw came into the rescue, and basically my entire store functions because she knows how all of it works. And so, yeah, it's really a hard thing, as is the coordination of calendars. I mean, I think one thing that's really nice about interacting with Last Stand Media, as being like one foot outside as a consultant to Last Stand Media or whatever that my current term is over there, is that it's good to have a point person. Like a lot of my interactions with others that ask for interviews or content or what have you have, let's call it an ambiguous communication setup for who exactly is setting things up, who's the boss, who's not, who you can actually listen to for the specifics of a taping. And Micah does a great job of kind of onboarding everything and making sure you know what's what.
Yeah.
Oh,
plus a
thank
DH,
you.
Micah. I think of you as like a powerful DH. You come in, you have your shows. You have your shows. I consider punching up your show, as amongst the other key players. But you also come in. This is like a DH, someone who could come in and just get us a triple, drive a couple of runs in. You know what I mean? Not only is it gracious on your part to do it, but it's so nice for Colin to have that player that he could call in off the bench in a pinch, who's, I have to tell you, good at podcasting. If you weren't,
everyone
then you
loves
wouldn't be in that position.
There are Micah fan threads on the subreddit,
Sure.
It's a very, very strange. And thank you all of you for that. Because Rick, with the merch, especially, for example, when we launched the merch shop, that was Dustin and I originally. Dustin did a lot of setting up the storefront, and we're brainstorming the actual ideas of what we want to sell. And then we had to figure it all out of like, how much do we order at a time? Do we think it's going to do well enough? Getting different ideas for stickers and keychains and bumper stickers and all these different things. And, Ben has largely taken over doing the merch with me. And so that has turned into Ben and I now like collaborating together on the pre-orders that we have been doing, the various campaigns we did of like the election t-shirt, the health is wealth t-shirt. And we want to continue doing those. But it is one of those things that the setup of it is like the hardest part. One of my neighbors had asked me, they had asked like, what do you do? And I mentioned, of course, I do the shows, but my big part of my job is the merch. And they were like, what was the hardest part of, getting the shop up and running? And it's like, just the intro is the hardest part. Now it kind of runs itself in the way that you get everything, configured the way you want. And you add a new item periodically, and maybe you have to tinker with a shipping setting. But otherwise, like, it's pretty well set to go. But the initial setup, like even Dustin and I, we still laugh about it, that when we first set up the merch store, I did like a test order, and it was like my home address was printing on the return label, and I was like on the shipping label is the return address. And I was like, well, that's not good.
It's a good
And
test,
we had to,
though.
right. It's like we had to go in and figure out how to get it to the VRPO box. And it was just ironing out a lot of wrinkles to get to this point where now the shop is established. Ben has done some reconfiguring on the site to make it look more, cleaner and more put together. But just getting there was the tricky part. But yeah, my day-to-day here is checking for orders. When we're having like a busy season, like a pre-order that we did or something, I'm going to the post office at least 3 days a week. Generally speaking, I'll go like twice a week and just try and bank up several orders just to, make it more efficient that way. But I'm checking the orders or checking the emails as well, getting people on the calendar for their various appearances. And that's like the most of what I do for Last Stand. And of course, gaming, taking a lot of notes for whatever shows I'm going to be on, whether it's Punching Up or Summon Sign. I always have my notes going in my phone so I can reference them later, or same for Constellation, a lot of prep because I am not someone with the best memory. So when you email me a topic, I always make bullet points so that I can remember the things I want to bring up. Sometimes it'll be like really specific things. Sometimes it's more general thoughts. But I find myself getting so scattered at times that I'm like, I gotta just have it all written down. So my phone is just all notes for all the shows that I'm on that I'm keeping track of. But yeah, prior to LSM, like very early out of high school, one of my first jobs ever, I worked at a stovepipe factory. And that was the earliest job I ever had. It was 5:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon.
Wow.
And you did 4 10s. So you worked Monday to Thursday and you had a 3-day
you were making
weekend.
the pots or the stovetops or?
Oh yeah, stovepipes. So I did a couple different roles while I was there. I've told this story before, but it's a quick one.
Relay pipe. sorry, I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
That took 30 seconds longer than I thought it was going to take.
Like my first day there, they put me on this machine, and it's essentially what it looks like is it's a wheel of multiple segments. The Trivial Pursuit, the little pie, segments you put together. Okay, imagine that it's made of metal, and when you step on this foot pedal, the pie wedges expand. And so what you do is you put the stovepipe over it, and then you step on the pedal and it expands the base of the pipe, right? Okay. And so that's how you get varying widths, for the different connectors. They start me on this machine, and it's my first day there. And they tell me the guy who ran this machine before just lost all his fingers last week.
Shit.
Like he had his thumbs left. And so it was one of those things of like, and this was like my first job out of high school.
Oh my God.
And it was my first factory job. And it was just like, the stakes are high. And I knew that because I went to a trade high school and I'd worked around machining for those 4 years. So like, it's dangerous. And it's dangerous. But I was just like, okay, and you're just like, this is it. This is the real world now. I'm not at school anymore. And that really just kind of set it in. And then I did various roles there. I did that. I also had a different station I worked at doing like spot welding. I did a different station, which was just the final assembly where you're putting the pipes into boxes. Each box gets their instruction manual, send it along. I did a couple different roles there. And then I worked at a different factory where it was actually, they manufactured like hand tools. And at that job, I was in the packaging department. So they would tell me every day what they were making. And I had to go get the various, like the cardboard and the plastic that goes on top, like for action figures. So I'd have to go get the correct cardboard, the plastic, and then you load up your machine and you're just going to keep loading it through for your 12-hour shift and just packaging all these different pieces together. And, it like heat presses them together. And so that was my job there. Wow. And that was 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., which the worst part of that job was working, it's in Massachusetts when it's winter and it's dark when you go to work and it's dark when you leave. Ooh. And there were, depending on what section of the building you're in, there's no windows. So there were days where I didn't see the sun the whole day. Sun. And it like kind of freaks you out. There's a very primal instinct of like, where was the sun? I never saw it. It was, if you didn't actually step outside for your lunch break, you just wouldn't see the sun.
That's brutal.
And it was
You're like
very
19,
weird.
That's
19,
rough.
20 years old. Micah, I just want to go back in time and protect you. Like, I want to meet you. I want to go visit you and let you know, like, the Gap is hiring. Like, I just want to, like, be like, can't you just go do something safe?
Oh,
Working
well,
at Old
and
Navy or
see-
some shit, you know.
Well, the thing is,
or what's that? The hot dog dipsticks or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
I liked
Dippin' Dots.
Oh,
Dippin'
Dippin' Dots.
Yeah.
I loved the work. I really enjoyed working in manufacturing. I liked the what I didn't like was the shift itself. It sounds cool on paper to have weekdays off. Like you do the 12-hour shift, and it's 3 days on, 2 days off, 2
Okay.
days on, 3 days off, and it rotates. But then when you end up having like your 2 weekdays off and your family's all at work, your friends are all at work, it actually ends up being kind of lonely. It's cool of like, oh, I can go grocery shopping and no one's out. I can do this. But then the weekend rolls around. It's like, I'm working this weekend. And of course, there's a lot of jobs that you work weekends, but especially doing the 12s, it was like, you just don't have consistent days off. It varies every week. Like I much preferred the 410s doing Monday to Thursday, 10 hours a day. But it was just so early in you on those work days. All you can do is you go home, eat dinner, go to bed. Because you're gotta be to work the next day at 5:30 in the morning. But I did love the work. I really do miss the factory setting and the manufacturing setting. The reason I stopped doing it was because I hurt my back. And I remember I was like, I'm only 19 and I have already had a workplace injury. And it was not permanent. I'm fine now. Like I want to highlight that I am okay. But it put a scare in me like, whoa, I'm really young to have almost like really fucked myself up here.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things of like, I realized it wasn't sustainable because it's like, what happens if maybe I have a good run and nothing happens to me, but like, what happens if I'm 35 and catastrophically hurt myself? That's way too young to be permanently, out of work perhaps because of a factory incident if I don't have to do this. So that was when I ended up going back to school, and I just went to community college, and I got my associates for computer information systems. It's officially what's on my degree, and I ended up getting the IT job at UMass, and that's what I did for almost 4 years. Was working in IT in a tier 1 help center, and I really enjoyed that too. There's tricky things. You have to have a lot of patience, of course, working with the general public who's utilizing technology. But I gained a lot of that from working retail in my college years. Like I worked at GNC. I worked at a small family-owned department store as well, which had some unique jobs in it. I used to work the gift wrap station every Christmas. And this girl, Stephanie, and I would pretend we were on a reality show called The Wrap. And we'd be like, this time on The Wrap. And we'd entertain the customers with it. Because like this guy brings up a bathrobe, right? And it's like a really big object. And we're like, ooh, can we do this? And we'd be like, next time on The Wrap. And they're watching us. They didn't end up giving us tips because we kept them entertained while we're rapping. So
That's
we're
awesome.
like, we had fun with it. It was otherwise a soul-sucking job, as most retail jobs are. But we made the best of it. We also, we used to do this thing from a distance. Like we'd be in one department and we'd see somebody in another department and we'd pretend what they were saying, and so we would just like make up little storylines about the customers, and just very playful. I want to highlight this was nothing mean, but like one time it was like there was this old man with his grandson and we kept saying like the grandson was trying to steal his Reese's Pieces, and he's like, you can't have them. Like we made the job a lot of fun. Is what I miss the most about these jobs is the people I worked with. The work itself often was drudgery, but as most, office and retail jobs can be. But the people, man, were so awesome. And the ladies that I've kept in touch with over the years from those various retail jobs, that was the best part, was the people I got to spend all those hours with and commiserating about the horrible customers and, the hardships or the worst manager you've ever had. But yeah, it's a weird path of jobs I've had to get here. But yeah, now these days, this is my main gig. And I do really enjoy being on the shows. I've warmed up to it more and more. I hope I've gotten better at it, but it is looking back at all the different things I've done. It is kind of funny just where it started and now what I do. They're so completely different things, such opposites in terms of the level of danger and the level of importance. I'm not doing anything here that's like I could die.
Yeah, no.
And I kind of like that these days.
Not usually. Yeah. I mean, you know what's fascinating about that too, Micah, hearing about the factory stuff, because that's really outside of my wheelhouse. I don't know that world at all. I'm from Long Island. It's not really a big thing out there, but it's the amount of how much that stuff is or was when you were doing it, at least, so analog. Like, you know what I mean? Like the human interaction with such dangerous tasks instead of automating them. I'm not arguing yay or nay for that. I'm just saying that's a fascinating bit. The other thing I thought of, Micah, is that, and you could speak to either one of these or both of these, is you were podcasting before you came to LSM, which I'm not sure a lot of people realize. Mm-hmm. I can't say the same thing for myself because I didn't start until I started doing Knockback. So when was it you were doing it, and your channel still exists as far as I know? I don't know how active you have it, but when did you start juggling your day job with podcasting? Because you were doing that longer than maybe any of us.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Not exactly like podcasting specifically, but yeah, I had my YouTube channel where I would do my various videos. I had my anime spotlight back in the day where I would just talk about what anime I was watching. I, of course, did a lot of unboxing videos for all my figures and games. I would do gaming impressions. I would never use the word review because the word review upsets people. So I'd always say my gaming impressions, spoiler-free impressions videos of whatever I was playing.
Fucking babies, man. But, oh my God, it's a review. So this is from the hand of God.
Exactly. I learned early on that you just word things a little differently, and it's like, it's not a review. These are just my thoughts. Smart. And it's the same fucking thing.
Semantics.
But as long as you don't call it a review, people are really pretty chill. So I used to do those, and I would do a monthly what I'm playing video just to go over what I was playing for the month. I would do some Let's Plays of horror games primarily, which ended up being pretty fun.
Ooh, are you going to play Silent Hill 2?
Oh, probably not. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Have you played Silent Hill 2 before?
I've never played Silent Hill, no.
I might.
It's pretty good.
Like someone who's never played the story before.
I might check it out.
You should check it out. It's not like, is it jump scares that freak you out?
Oh, it's just I haven't played a ton of scary games in general. I really started playing them for my channel because I thought it'd be funny, and it was. I would get so scared I'd cry, which people really got a kick out of. But yeah, I still haven't played many horror games because I am just largely a scaredy cat.
I consider Silent Hill to be mostly moody psychological.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to put it.
It's not trying to have things jump out of closets at you. Usually,
yes, that's a good breakdown.
Yeah. People have described Silent Hill 2, the original game, as a cozy game because it's very pretty easy to get through.
Yeah,
the combat is very simple, and the puzzles are just nice and easy to kind of
pretty linear.
Out, so.
Yeah, I might check that out.
The challenge is how creepy it is. That's literally it doesn't even scare you or freak you out. But the challenge is just how creepy and generally oppressive the atmosphere is. That's where the challenge is.
I like stuff like that. Playing Dementium the Ward recently. Of course, there's some jump scares in it, but the best thing about that game, in my opinion, is you come up to a door and you have to open it and you just don't want to. You are dreading opening that door. And I'm like, this is the type of fear that I love because it's the only way forward. I don't want to open it, but I have to.
Silent Hill 2 is entirely a video game that is just that. That is just that.
I'll check it out.
Because you walk into an apartment building, and the apartment building is laid out like a regular apartment building. It has 10 apartments, and you have to check every door. And the whole game is, oh my God, is this door going to open? Oh my God, thank God it didn't open. Thank God it didn't open.
James throws his body against another locked door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's where the quote "shit's locked" came from, because everything, so many things are locked in Silent Hill as well. So
I really do like Silent Hill too.
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Mike,
but yeah,
watch Colin play it. I hope Colin plays it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he bought it, I believe. I think I saw it downloading on the PlayStation the other day. But So yeah, I started doing my own channel. I was working. Was I? I don't remember what year I started it. I'm pretty sure I was still working my retail job, and I would try to do 2 or 3 videos per week. When I started working full time at UMass, I think I maybe dropped to more like 1 or 2 videos per week because it was just like such a shift going from being college kid working a part time retail job to now we're working actually like again full time for the first time in a couple of years.
Sure.
And then YouTube just over the years changed their requirements. I lost my monetization because I don't get enough viewing hours. And so it's just not worth doing if it's not monetized. Like it's just not. And it's also it's frustrating because YouTube still puts ads on the video, so they
Oh.
make money off the video, just I don't. So it's kind of like a point of principle of like, well, this kind of sucks that you can put like it used to be if you weren't monetized, your video didn't have ads on it. And now it's like, no, your video has ads. You just don't get the money. And it's not like it was ever a ton of money in the first place, but just on principle, it's like, well, it's a lot of work to do these because I would do all the edits myself and put the music in and everything and my little graphics that I had a friend from high school make, you know. So it just became too much work to do for free. And the videos I was doing were just short. Even my, impression, review type videos wouldn't be more than 10 minutes. So it was just one of those things I could not get enough watch hours to get my monetization back. And that's why I leave the channel up. It still gets views. It still gets comments, weirdly. Like it'll be a video from 6 years ago and someone will be like, where can I get that figure? And it's like, I don't even remember where I bought it, you know? Or actually, I had to take down a video for the first time because I don't know if you guys know about like the scandal with DK Oldies, that like website that
Yes.
sells used gaming
Forgot
hardware
about that.
and games. And there was this big scandal about them sending out used consoles. They're supposed to be all checked over, but they'd arrive like filthy, you know?
Yeah.
And I had years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, made a video where I ordered, oh, even more than that. It had to be more than that. But I made a video where I ordered something from them and just said, like, did the games arrive in working condition type deal. I ordered from them. I also ordered from Lukey Games, which is another used gaming site. But I was getting all these mean comments calling me like a shill and like an industry plant. And they're like, oh, she's a YouTuber. They sent her good stuff. And it's like, this video was made when I had like 1,000 subscribers. This video was made several years before the controversy, but nobody looked at the date.
That's so weird.
They were just searching DK Oldies on YouTube and my video would come up, but they didn't notice that my video was like 6 years old.
Jesus.
And so it was just
You are
like,
so fucking
dude,
stupid, dude.
It's
I
always
swear
some
to God.
drama.
right. So I ended up taking the video down. I just set it to private because I was getting so many mean comments on this video that was really old and saying like, oh, she's lying. Or one person was like, they must have put a gun to her head to get such a good review out of her. And it's like, I literally bought like, 4 Game Boy games or something from them and a controller. And it was like years ago. It was hysterical, but I ended up taking that down only
Jesus.
because it was like, I still want to deal with all these comments.
I
But
can imagine.
there are times I think about going back to it. I feel like I get enough time to talk about, my games and everything. Like a big reason why I did the channel in the first place was because I didn't really have real life friends who played games and I just wanted to be able to talk about gaming. And so I had my little community and all the comments and everything. And I do my what I'm playing video and people tell me what they're playing. We chat
Sure.
about it, get gaming recommendations. Now I don't really need that because I have all you guys. So on the one hand, I miss doing the videos. I miss, having like my own little space to kind of curate my interests. But without the monetization, it's just like, do I want to spend, hours every week doing this? Not really.
Yeah.
But I do think time to time about going back to it. Because I do miss having that little channel going.
Yeah.
I do
mean, you
tell
leave the door
folks-
open. See?
I do tell folks who are looking to get into YouTube and video creation that like you have to like the process on its own for such a long time
Yeah.
before that's ever going to pay you better than going out and babysitting people in your neighborhood.
Oh, exactly, right?
And so like that, you have to just like that process because it is work. It might not be as bad as your day job. It may not be as bad as something else that you're doing, but it is work. You'll feel tired after having done it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And when that monthly check comes in for 36 cents, that's either the start of your journey or that's when you say, oh, okay, no.
That's gut check time.
Right.
Yeah,
and that was part of it. Was it's like, yeah, I did. I worked so hard to get monetized in the first place.
Yeah.
And then when they changed the requirements and my videos no longer met them, so then it was like I just remember looking at the numbers and I was just so far below the threshold. I was like, I honestly just don't think I can actually do it this time. Like they have changed it so much that what I was able to do before, I was like, I just don't even think I can re-get the monetization. I tried to for a while. And then it was like, all right, well, we climbed the mountain once. It's like sending Frodo back to Mordor. 'Cause it's like, you climbed it, but we need you to do it again. It's like, well, this time I'm just going to not do it. But it is, you really do have to enjoy doing the videos enough to get through that stretch.
Yeah.
And I did enough the first time, but the second time around, it's kind of like,
You know, I get that. I remember specifically making videos and having 65 views and 8 comments or whatever, and being like, this is the dumbest way to spend my time that I could have possibly come up with. And like, I remember going through that whole process. And again, I'm so thankful that the channel existed and the community existed for when I really, really, really needed it. And that was just a blessing for me. But there were so many moments that were just like, this is really hard. You have to really grind that thing.
That's
yeah,
tough.
absolutely.
You hung in there, and it
That's a
grew.
big reason why I haven't done it yet either.
Gene, I was wondering about that with you. You were talking about Colin and Greg earlier. I think of guys like you who have big social media followings.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you ever consider leveraging that and
1000%.
doing not only? I'm not trying to pull you from WAPO, right?
Yeah.
I'm not at all. I'm not trying to steal you away, but I'm saying, like, do you ever think not only to really do exactly what you want to do, like Colin did, but also in a sense of monetizing that and getting some real money from that?
Yeah, exactly. I think about it every day. Every day, it is a central conflict right now of my career, and a lot of it does have to do with what Rick spoke about earlier. It's hard to find the energy to do this. You know, I've spoken with our good friend Jimmy Champagne. I've sought him out for advice. I was like, yo, you know, I'm thinking about doing more YouTube stuff. You know, can I ask you for help? And he was like, yeah, totally. And then I just haven't done it because it's tiring, it's exhausting. I wanted to I have a Twitch affiliate channel, you know?
Yeah.
Part of it is frustration with work, in that I wish I work at a mainstream international news organization. I should be having the tools to do this, right? But I think it's a reality of how stunted the media has become that even the Great Washington Post is not able to provide for me a decent platform for even 30-minute to 45-minute videos that are very, very extremely lightly edited, you know, barely edited at all. I just need a fade in and fade out and maybe a little intro music, right? And maybe cutting out some of my stutters and dead air. But they're not able to provide that for me, and and apologize to the Washington Post. I'm not bitching about you guys, but I am. You know,
I understand that.
You know, I want to work for the Washington Post. If I want to do a Twitch stream, I want to do it for the Washington Post. You know, I am a little bit of a company man. I do appreciate what the Washington Post has done for my career. We talk about how popular I am. A huge part of that is because of the fact that I work at the Washington Post. You know,
sure.
A huge part of what makes me interesting as a games journalist is because I work at the Washington Post, and I was kind of like the first like mainstream media reporter. You know, I still like that being that person. I still think that there are barriers to break within this space.
Right.
It's getting harder though. You know, and you know, compounding that is this tired factor where I am still recovering from everything. Where I'm still in the process of recovery, where I still have to get quarterly scans that's the one bummer in my life.
Of course.
And that I still have to do quarterly scans for one more year. You know, I was really hoping to cut that off by December, but my doctor was like, well, we did find that spot in your lungs last year. So that did reset the clock.
I remember that.
one more year of this bullshit, and then we can ramp that down. But it's hard to schedule my life around that stuff, and
Totally
schedule big
understandable,
projects.
dude.
I've had book publishers and book agents approach me, several of them. I've had several opportunities to say, Gene, you should write a book. We want you to write a book. And I like 3 opportunities. I've turned them all down because I'm just like, I don't know if I have the energy. And to be quite frank, this is completely about books only. I've never really wanted to write a book. I would rather be on the internet. I think I subscribe to what Kanye says. My Twitter is my book. Which is a stupid thing, but it's like I don't. I in my brain because I work every day as a journalist, right? Like I said, I wrote 5 fucking articles a day, right? My brain can't imagine taking a year or 2 off to work and finish one thing. That doesn't compute for me. That doesn't feel productive. That doesn't feel like it's going to end in a good way. And that's just not how I work. Now, do I still want to write a book someday? Yeah, sure, why not? My ego wants me to, right? But
And you got
it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. But yeah, trust me that I think about it all the time. And if you do see a similar move, just be like, oh, Gene finally did it.
They did it. Took a leap. It's a leap
Pulled the
of faith.
trigger.
Yeah, he finally pulled the trigger. Taylor did it, and a lot of people are like, I'm surprised that she took that long. And she's famously a very sick person. She's always lecturing people about COVID regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So she's needed insurance and good backup too. So that's
that
where
leap
we're
of
at
faith
too.
thing,
It's tough.
I get it, Gene. I mean, listen, like all great, really great topics like Constellation, we went long on this one, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time.
I thought it was going to be a light, easy topic that we just snooze on by, but it's been an hour and 40 minutes, bro.
No, it's a great topic, and I'm not going to take up a lot of time.
We can move on. Yeah, it's fine. I'm very satisfied. So.
All right, and I'll bring up the rear. I'm not going to say too much. You guys already know my story anyway. But
also part of this was with you, Dagan, because you've been off, and it's been a tough balance for you, right? So.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that a little bit. I mean, people probably already know what the deal was with that, and it's typical Dagan. It's very on brand, but listen, if we go long, I'll reserve the right to yank my topic at the end. I'm going to be here next week. I'll put it in next week. 3-topic show is fine. The topics are good, meaty discussions. That's what we care about here. You guys know. Listen, my day job is animation. I've been a professional animator, been paid to be an animator since October of 98. So you could do the math. It's been a long time. And I was already doing it professionally when I was still in my senior year of art school. So it's been a long road. It's been a tough row to hoe with me for animation, but it's what I always knew I wanted to do from when I was a little kid. In the end, despite my frustrations, besides the cyclical nature of the industry and how frustrating entertainment could be, it's really what I was put on earth to do. I'll do it for the rest of my life, despite the highs and lows. This is really what I was put here to do. It's the only thing I'm really, I think, good at. And I love it in the end. But what makes it, and what was really cool is in 2017, 2018, whenever Colin and I did our first fireside chat about The Last Jedi, which led to, that was kind of my tryout for Knockback, and that led to Knockback, and the rest is history.
I should watch that one.
Thing I really love to do.
I should watch that one. I should watch Fresh Colin after The Last Jedi too. That'd be interesting.
I mean, it's so crazy because 6 or 7 years doesn't sound like it's been a long time, but it's been a journey. And there's 2 things that kind of makes this conversation come full cycle, because, and really full circle in a way, because I fell in love with podcasting. I never knew I would enjoy something like I enjoy working in cartoons, right? But the tough thing about it for me is when I started in animation, I was already kind of firmly entrenched at a studio for a matter of years where I had some mobility and I had some autonomy. So I could take PTO days and travel to LA to record with Colin every few months, or he could come to Philly and I would take the time off. And, I had health insurance. I had a stable job with a team who I really knew well, even at that point. So I had wiggle room and I had some room to maneuver. and make time for the podcast, even though, there wasn't a lot of money in it. It was more of a hobby, more of a passion project. Like we're all saying about, really the way our podcasting endeavors break down, LSM and otherwise. But what's been challenging, and what is challenging about working in animation, is it's very nomadic and freelance driven by its nature. You're employed per project oftentimes, or per period. We're hiring you for 3 months to do this project. We're hiring, and maybe you get extended. Maybe you get another season of a show. Maybe you don't. So you could be at a place for 9 years like I've been, or you could be at a place for 2 weeks. So it makes scheduling the podcasts very difficult when you really don't know what's coming next. And that's where I hit loggerheads earlier in the year. I guess it was around May or June with the podcast, was because I had a job that was very demanding, and initially commuting again for the first time since probably 2019, which was tough. And then it was like, all right, I have to, and also very demanding time wise. So I was leaving the house at 8, getting home at 9. And then another job right after that, where I was working on a series of commercials 16 hours a day. There was just no way. Couldn't get off Fridays. So, I was like, maybe I could just whittle it down to Constellation like I'm doing now. Knockback, we got to kind of put on the back burner. And then my involvement with Punching Up, we got to kind of put that in stasis for a while. So right now, even with Constellation doing it on Fridays, I kind of came to the conclusion, like, I'm going to make Constellation my thing, and the day job will have to work around it, because I love it. Given that clarity of that 2 or 3 months, it's like, I miss it. I really love it. It is a constant in my life, although it's not my bread and butter financially. It's a day a week podcast. That's not realistic to think I could make what I make in animation doing a podcast once a week. But that's really it matters to me. So the day, the fact of let's kind of make my animation career work with the podcast and make the podcast the mainstay. That's the conclusion that I arrived at. That took me a little distance to see that. You know what I mean? It was nice to be away and just have that fresh perspective. And really where it's landed me, and I, don't get me wrong, I have a much smaller following than a Gene or a Colin or a Greg, right? But it's like, I enjoy podcasting so much that people that know me know I've been talking about this, flirting with this for years, is that, can I endeavor to make podcasting a full-time thing by talking about the thing that I know the best, right? Animation, that I have experience in, that I have expertise in, but I also enjoy really talking about it. And really, really where it stands with me is that I could do a scripted podcast on animated topics and still kind of cast a wide net as far as a variety of things I'm talking about and have a blast with it. But really what I would rather do is have a partner that knows it like I know it, both as a fan and as somebody who's engaged in the profession, to have a discussion about it every week. And that's really where I'm at. I'm looking for that person that I know that I could do that with. And it's hard because I although I have friends that would be really good at podcasting, they wouldn't be appropriate for talking about animation. The animation friends I know that are really good at it, that are firmly entrenched, that have a lot of experience and expertise, maybe wouldn't be the best podcasters. So that's where I'm at. But what's exciting is that I feel this head of steam, right? I feel this strength and this motivation slowly swelling up in me, there's a slow build. And I think taking that leap of faith that Gene's talking about, even though I would be doing it with a much smaller following than Gene, right? And it is trying to find a way to do it while I'm still doing everything else, Constellation, which I don't intend to go anywhere, and my animation career. And can I do that third thing and just get it started? You know what I mean? And I just feel this thing. I don't know if you guys could speak to this feeling. It's hard to articulate, but I feel like it's going to happen. I feel like I'm closer than I ever was to sort of diving off that cliff that Colin's been pushing me to do for years, and my podcast most likely wouldn't be on LSM. I don't think it's appropriate for LSM. And Colin has made that offer to me countless times. But just to start my own thing and talk about and really just engage in podcasting in a way that I think I would really enjoy as a professional. You know what I mean? I really think I would dig it. But I know, it comes with those risks that Gene was talking about and those fears, right, of not having the paycheck. I have a wife with a good job. I have a wife with health insurance. Can I leverage those things? You know what I mean? And take that leap of faith. I don't know, but I feel excited because the last time, I knew I was going to be an animator from being a little boy, just loving cartoons. I was very lucky. It didn't matter. I could think back to being 4 years old and watching a cartoon. And this will speak to my topic when I get to it, whether it's this week or next week, is, it didn't matter if it was an action cartoon. It didn't matter if it was hokey. It didn't matter if it was funny. It didn't matter if it was dated. It didn't matter if it was black and white. If it was a cartoon and it was on television, or God forbid, mom and dad took me to the movie theater to see a Disney feature or something. That was it. Just it was like, this is my world. This is what I want to do. So, and the last time I had a flirtation with doing anything else was in 6th grade when I briefly wanted to be an archaeologist, and I thought that meant being Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you get the
I
whip
thought
out.
I would have a gun and a whip and look for dinosaur bones. And when I found out it wasn't that, I was like, oh, no. Cartoons will be the thing, right?
Who says you can't bring a gun and a whip to the archaeological dig? Who says you can't?
Very treaty,
I feel like I'm back in 6th grade this is terrible, especially because I'm talking with intellectuals here, but 6th grade was the last time I really liked school. And between 6th and 7th grade, my science teacher sort of ushered in, introduced this archaeology club over the summer. And I thought of archaeology already being a huge Raiders and Temple fan, right? Of oh, yeah, of course. I'm going to have the hat. I have the beautiful women. It's going to be exotic. I'm going to go to all these crazy locales. I'll have the gun. Maybe I'll be a professor with young girls flirting with me. I'll have the bullwhip. It's just, it was glamorous. It was adventure, right? It was and then I realized it wasn't those things. But that was the last time, literally. It sounds funny, but that was the last time I really flirted with ever doing anything else. It was me. I was going to draw cartoons. I was going to Disney. I had my grandfather coaching me on, who was a frustrated would-be animator, sort of being like, you're not going to make the same mistake I did. You're actually going to do this. So, you know what I mean? The fact of, I think, my love for podcasting, you may even argue I'm not that great at it. Dagan, you're crazy. Get out of your own fantasy. This is never going to happen. But I love it enough to try. I never thought I would find something like that again.
I was actually going to argue the opposite, Dagan. I really think I talked about the grind and that you have to love it.
Sure.
And that it's difficult for a long period of time. I really think that somebody who is sincere and passionate about what they want to talk about and can make sentences that make sense in a row, which you clearly can, is going to succeed as long as they can get past that barrier. As long as you can do the time and get through that grind, I really have no doubt in my mind that's going to work out for you if you choose to pursue it.
That's very kind. It means a lot coming from you because you're very good at it. And also, I am at that tender stage of needing this kind of, I need to be built up. So I appreciate that. I need that confidence instilled.
I know we don't talk a lot. I know you don't know me in my real life, but I am not a puffery guy. I'm not going to send you out to go die in a fire. I really believe that you would be okay.
Yeah.
I really
Lawyers have no obligation to be nice. Really.
It's true.
In some ways, we have an obligation to not be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's right. So that's I've missed everybody here. I've missed everybody at LSM. I've missed the interaction with the communities of the shows I've been lucky enough to be a part of. But the distance from summer to early fall with me being away has given me this new clarity and sort of these new sets of goals that, again, I feel closer to. You come to a realization in, right, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? I was away from podcasting. I missed it. And, that realization set in pretty quick. And then it was figuring it out, a little soul searching. You know what I mean? Maybe the animation career, loyalty is a two-way street. You know what I mean? Colin's been loyal to me. I enjoy the podcasting. Maybe you build everything around the podcasting. And, money be damned, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm at. And you know what? If the animation studios that I currently work for and have worked for, or maybe will work for, hear that, that's just the way it's got to be. It's been 26 years, right, of bouncing around against my will. Some people like freelance. I don't. I'd rather not. You know what I mean? If I want to work on my own projects, I'll write a children's book and draw it. I'll work on my own cartoons. I have my own ideas. You know what I mean? Give me this. I always wanted the steady paycheck, but since it's like battling against the nature of an industry that I have no power against, it's like I'm going to start it with
Yeah.
podcasting and build everything around that.
I relate
That's
to
my
that so
new
much right there.
strategy.
What you just said, build.
Mm.
What did you say? Building a what?
Building my life now.
Uh-huh.
Instead of building it around my animation career,
Mhm.
build the animation career
Oh,
around
okay,
podcasting.
yeah.
So the podcasting is now the keystone, and everything comes around that. And it took me 6 or 7 years of doing this to realize that. You know what I mean? And because you're coming from, especially being a homeowner, right, having a mortgage, having 2 kids, one's getting ready for college, that's going to be a lot of money. Having a family, you're coming from a financial standpoint a lot. That's just life. We all understand that. But sometimes you got to kind of break that. You know, I think Jim Carrey said that, right? He's like, if you can't manage to kind of decrease your lifestyle in some way for a certain amount of time, a year, 2 years, 5 years, in order to really try to get where you want to go for financial freedom and for your happiness, right? Then what's it all for? You know what I mean? So it's like just trying to embrace that mindset. And, you know, Gene, I have those same anxieties as you. Like, and I'm also very conservative, much to Colin's consternation. You know, he always says that you're way too conservative. You're not a risk taker.
Mhm.
You know, you gotta kind of embrace that part of yourself that, you know what I mean? Just try. What's the worst you could do? You could fail.
Mhm.
You know, I don't want to be that dude laying on my deathbed that was like, I shoulda, coulda, woulda type of thing. I really don't. I
Yeah, it
really
goes back
don't.
to what
So,
what was told to Rick: be a family man or firm man. And like Rick made his priorities because he probably thought that far ahead. When you think about, that there was that famous saying, when you're on your deathbed, you never really think, oh, I should have worked more, as opposed to,
Mm.
oh, I
absolutely
wish
right.
I spent more time with my family, which I
Very
I
well said.
certainly am thinking right now. My fucking cat, that cat died, and yeah, it's just a cat, but it also, first it wasn't just a cat, but secondly, it drills home to me, oh, family is really, really important. So I'm really, really thinking about ways to get closer to family right now. It's really become urgent. But also what you said, Dagan, when you said loyalty is a two-way street, it does remind me why it's hard to leave the Washington Post, because I know I just bitched about it and them not being able to give me the infrastructure
Mm,
to for me to do that, but they didn't give that to Taylor either, right? And they're not really giving to anyone. It's really just the nature of the industry and the business that we're running. Loyalty is a two-way street, and the Washington Post has been loyal to me. Um,
okay.
the management has been very, very kind to me. Um, they have been rewarding to me. And they don't do that for quite everyone. And I recognize that there's a lot of people I work with that aren't being treated as well as I am, um, and I have to recognize that. And I do. It's hard to leave that privilege, to be quite honest.
Sure. Dude, I could understand. It would be like, Gene, I might feel differently if I was in your position where you were fortunate enough and they were fortunate enough to have you, but you were at the same place for many years. Who is it okay if I offend? Cartoon Network, they're all but dead, right? Cartoon Network hires me for, indefinitely instead of just hiring me as an animator or a character
Yeah.
designer or whatever for a season of a show.
Mhm.
I know going in to their, to my own. I mean, I can't fault them for this. This is the nature of things. I know at the end of that season, if it doesn't get picked up, I'm getting laid off. Now, if Cartoon Network just hired me and definitely said, we're going to find a home for you no matter what, we'll move you around from show to show, you're going to stay actively employed here for as long as you want to, that would make it very difficult for me.
Stability is hard to leave. Yeah.
Yeah,
Stability
that
is hard to
would
leave.
be very tough. But I don't have that. So
It's
I
why
have
we're
the luxury of
conservative.
being able to say, you know what? Nickelodeon I'm Nickelodeon right now, or I'm getting ready to go back to Nickelodeon. Maybe, okay, I know this is going to end in February. maybe by February I have a couple of episodes of the podcast up. Now I'm off and running, and we'll see. And if I could just side by side them for a while, maybe I'll get as bit. I'll work out like it did with Colin, where Colin could say vamos. He could say adios, and he could go off and do his own thing. And that's what everybody wants to do. I wonder about that with you too, Micah. Like, you have a much bigger following now. Could you leverage that following and do something with your channel where it would be monetarily beneficial for you to, or at least worth it for you to dip your toe back in? That would be,
Well,
I'd be
pardon me for
interested.
interrupt, but I just thought about your work as a creator, as an animator, right? And there's this meme going around about my friend Marco Meatball. He's a YouTuber as well, but he's an opera singer, and he's very classically trained in music.
Okay.
And his whole YouTube presence is about opera singer reacts to this music or this song or whatever. And then there's a meme going around: opera singer plays Silent Hill for 2 for the first time. And then the joke is, what the fuck does his job have to do with anything? And then people have to explain that's his YouTube shtick. He is the opera singer that does stuff, right?
That's funny.
I wonder if you'd find a huge audience, if you talk about deeply about your resume, the shows and projects you worked on, and then say animator reacts to animation in Ghosts of Yote, or the Ghosts of Yote trailer, or animation in this fucking thing, or
I would love to do that,
whatever,
dude.
Yeah, no, exactly. Do a whole series on why Don Bluth movies are so scary for children. Why'd they do this to us?
Yeah. Or
good stuff.
Or animator discusses the history of Cuphead, and the history behind that art style, or something.
Absolutely,
break it down for us. That's a lot of work. That's a huge ton of work.
It is.
That would be a full-time job.
Definitely, but it still sounds appealing to me. So that must be a good sign, I think.
Mm-hmm. It is appealing. I would watch the hell out of that. Definitely. I watch fucking opera singer react to Ace Combat 6 music. I'm not an opera singer.
That's a great idea.
I don't think I've only been in opera once. But I am
that's one time more than
I am a trained musician.
That is really great music.
Yeah.
And
and I am familiar with animation. My roommate was an animator too. So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
his
cool.
dad teaches animation at Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, no way.
He used to work at Disney. So
good school.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Does he want to do a podcast, Gene?
I need a podcast.
We can get him and Dagan linked up.
Maybe
This is it.
That could be fun.
Looking for that
he's one of the coolest guys I know. So.
There are hoags in animation. I mean,
is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me about that.
My uncle and his son, I think, both worked on the Nimona movie in Chicago.
No way.
Yeah.
What?
In Chicago? Yeah. The Hoags of Chicago are in animation, and my uncle owned I guess it's an advertising firm, a commercial maker, a company that helped produce commercials.
No way.
And I have cells and things from them from back in the day. So, I'm not sure you want more hoags on the internet.
That's so cool.
But that's certainly...
No, let's do it. Let's talk. It's very frustrating for me because I know people that would be great to do it, but they don't have both things. They don't have the experience and the expertise, or the interest to talk about it, maybe. And you know what I mean? And the pedigree to be able to sort of co-host a podcast. My friend, I talk about friend Colin. There's 2 Collins in my life, one of my best friends and my brother. And my brother's one of my best friends, so it gets confusing. But there's another Colin who would be an amazing podcaster. He's one of the best storytellers I've ever met. Funny, very smart, an animator, but he's not passionate enough to talk about it. You know what I mean? He's just not. It's his career. He's much more talented than I'll ever be, but he's not going to want to talk about that. He will do a podcast, but he doesn't want to talk about that. So I got to find that person. It's casting this high bar. I got to find this person that meets all the criteria. It's tricky. Put me in touch with the Hoags. I'll give them a shot. Or they'll give me a shot. Whatever. Gene, are you satisfied with this topic, Mike?
Let's go. I'm excited for these other topics.
Oh, Togue just put something in the chat for us.
You tell me to send messages. I send messages.
I love it. It's a good man. And listen, we went long on Gene's awesome topic. I kind of reserve the right. I'll yank mine at the end.
I like your topic too. I think that could be a short one, but who knows? But,
I'll try to save that topic.
I actually have an answer for your topic. I thought I wouldn't, but I figured it out. So
okay, good. I was worried about that.
Yeah, I was like, how the fuck am I gonna? Oh wait, no, I know exactly what I'm gonna talk about.
You don't want a 20-minute dissertation on Farscape? I'm ready.
Oh, and if not today, it's an anytime topic, so we could put it in anywhere. I could wait for another Gene appearance. We'll see. But Mike, I'm going to kick it over to you, and because I think yours is a nice kind of contrast to what we just talked about, and also kind of a surprising topic coming from Micah Moriarty. But I'm interested in talking about this with you guys. I'll let you. I'll say no more. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So my topic, I presented this to the gang because I was like, I have in front of me some of the people I consider to be more even-tempered of our cast, and crew. Whereas I am a very angry person. And that doesn't always come through in the show. Sometimes it does, but I'm a spicy little jalapeno, and so I wanted to talk about anger, how we deal with it. Do you have specific things you do? Like, you have a really bad day. What do you do to just like get rid of those feelings, to work through them? Essentially, maybe it's online gaming to just take out frustration on another team, right? I have a couple things I go to, and I'm just going to list those briefly. Number one is music. Music's the absolute number one thing. I have specific songs I go to when I'm really angry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and see, here's the thing, and it depends on what happened, but my short list, I have a list of 5 songs that I usually go to. First is Asshole by Eminem, and then Survival by Eminem. Also Houdini by Eminem.
Oh my God.
Oh, wait.
And then Welcome Home by Coheed and Cambria, and The Pot by Tool. These are situational. It really depends what happened. And there's more than that.
Good angry man.
There's more than that to pull from, but those often just cover all the bases. And it's just, for me, it's about letting the music say what I can't say. I can't call this person the names I want to call them, but Eminem can. And so just feeling it that way, letting someone else do the yelling and screaming, and I'm just, eventually it's like I find it relaxing. It doesn't have the effect of keying me up more, is what I want to say. It's like, yeah, I listen to somebody get real angry, and it feels almost like I was able to get real angry myself. And I always just feel better after listening to some angry tunes. Eminem, of course, being a favorite.
That's good.
And he has a lot of angry songs to choose from. There's no shortage of them. The other one, though, is cooking and baking. And I say that with a, don't do this at home. Like, don't, chop onions angry. No knives. Okay. Don't chop things while you're mad. It seems like it'd be satisfying, but you gotta be careful. Okay. But specifically, things like making mashed potatoes, and you're just mashing their face into the countertop with every mash, and I'm just bashing your skull right into the countertop is what I'm picturing. Banana bread. I am an angry little goose, and I was making some banana bread yesterday. And with every mash of that banana, and I'm just picturing taking this person by the hair and I'm just bashing them into the door frame, right? And I would never do that.
Dude,
I would never do that.
This is the clip that's going to the police.
The Last of Us Joel Miller glory kills on these people. Jesus.
And it helps, right? And I'm mashing and it's really good. You get banana bread in the end of it. You get mashed potatoes in the end of it, whatever angry food you've made. Cooking and baking is another staple. Exercise is effective. Again, don't hurt yourself. Don't go lifting 300 pounds just because you want to run through. You can't do that.
I never dream of it.
But a bike ride, a nice little bike ride, get your legs pumping, like things like that do help. Do I utilize that as often as the banana bread? No. No, but I'd rather make banana bread than ride a bicycle. But
Can I recommend a
exercise
heavy
is a
bag?
good one. Oh, absolutely.
I would
Yeah.
happily recommend a heavy bag. I got one when I was in physical therapy. It's a good time.
Exactly. That's the type of thing. Like, yeah, punching bag, maybe you decide to do a little Tai Chi or something. Like, it just exercise, moving your body really does help with getting rid of bad feelings because just that physical exhaustion, just helps. But the last thing, and maybe the most effective thing, is the imaginary wrestling match. And I can't be alone in this. We all have our shower arguments, right? We all have you come up with the perfect one-liner that you should have said during the fight. So you rehash the whole thing in your mind when you're shampooing your hair. But this wrestling match, now this is the one that really helps because it's just the crowd's going wild. First of all, I'm either Rick Rude or a Macho Man. All right, I'm going to be one of those guys in this matchup. I might be Sheamus as well for going a little newer, or Jake the Snake Roberts, but usually Macho Man. And it's just like you're just picturing it, right? You're in the middle of the ring, and I'm gonna stomp your ugly mug right into the canvas, and I'm looking at you with your hot dog and in your grandstand, and I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna leave you in a heap in the middle of the ring, and it just really works. It just really works to have my own little wrestling matches, and I'm just destroying this person legally. All right.
Of course, legally. I'm not law enforcement over here.
I'm throwing it out there that my imaginary wrestling match is fully sanctioned and everybody agreed to it. And then I also am just way too strong.
I just like that you got consent for your imaginary match.
You're safe until thought crimes, right? Like thought crimes, exactly. Then we're going to have a problem.
No, the meme of, whatever you say, just always add in Minecraft after it. So it's like, oh man, I would murder this person in Minecraft. And it's like, whoa, they said in Minecraft. But yeah, the imaginary wrestling match always works. That'll usually get me laughing by the end of whatever or whoever I was angry at. Is I picture their face all mangled, they're like Mick Foley, they're lost an ear in the turnbuckle, I threw them through the Spanish announce table. All right, like I usually feel much better after picturing all that. So those are my things.
Why not just be you, though, instead of being Macho Man? Just be you. The person's the person that you're angry at, right?
I'm 5'4", 110 pounds. I can't actually suplex this person. I can't actually hit him with an F5. All right, like I can't actually do that.
You could do it.
So yeah, I have to be, it's got to be that either I'm a very strong version of myself, which even then wouldn't be very impressive, or I'm ravishing Rick Rude, or I'm Macho Man Randy Savage. And it doesn't matter what the gender of the other person is, they're still them. So sometimes Macho Man is just throwing down on, some woman. And that's even funnier to picture. So, but those are my things. And I want to start with Rick. Because Rick, I see you, family man, very kind person, extremely pleasant to deal with. And I'm like, this guy's got to be a guru for dealing with anger because I've never seen it. So I have to imagine Rick, what do you do when you're angry?
I think I'm very fortunate for the most part that I'm not usually very angry and not
I can't
angry,
picture it.
Not
I can't picture never being angry.
I will tell you the things that get me the most agitated, which can often verge on anger, tend to be sports results. These are entirely outside my control, right? The Tigers lost yesterday in an important playoff game. They still get another one tomorrow, but they lost yesterday, and my mood immediately shifted after that loss. And when I'm angry about things like that, I can use the heavy bag. One of the things I do is music, but I don't go into the more angry music or expressing it that way. I tend to be very kind of chill. The song that I listen to when I'm very upset at a sports result is the finale song from the television show Lost, which, if you're not familiar with this at home, is a very kind of melancholic, almost church-sounding bit of music. And my wife, if she hears this coming from my area, whether that's my office or the basement, will be like, no, what happened? If she hears that music, you're not allowed to listen to Lost. It's like, okay. So that's really what I do. I think the angriest that I've been in the recent past would have to be like in the ICU. And one of the things that you're fighting is just kind of the resentfulness of why did this happen to me, and things were going in a good direction or what have you. And I tell this story in my stroke video series, but like one thing that really worked that popped into my head, I actually have it on my desk here, I don't know if it'll show up, is Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings basically saying, we don't get to decide what happens to us. You just get to decide what you do from there. And like that, I had what I called Gandalf in my head. Every single time the thought would come through my head that was, this isn't fair. Why did this happen? Whatever. Going into that direction, I would just have this immediately pop up.
Awesome.
And that's wiring. I'm blessed that way. That's not, I don't have any special secret sauce for that, but that's what happened the most recent time that I was angry.
No, I mean, that I envy that, because anger is probably just one of the most present emotions in my life. And whether it's in a comical way of like, I'm angry at the man at Subway today for messing up my sandwich. And I'm nice to retail workers. He never would know, but on the inside, I'm seething. But that's most of my life, is that on the inside, I'm seething. And I have never been able to look at the sunny side very easily. I can laugh at things later. I can always make a joke of something later. But in the moment, it's just like I'm always internally screaming at something. Whether it's at the grocery store because the checkout lady is done checking out this customer and they're still talking 2 minutes later, and I'm smiling, but on the inside, I'm like, just go, get out of here. Vamos, don't you want to go home? You're the highlight of your day is standing at fucking Publix. Like, what is wrong with you? That's me on the inside. And I don't show that. And I keep it all stuffed down. But it's one of those things of like, that's my constant struggle every day, is stuffing down the angry Micah who's just often there. So I envy someone who doesn't have to do that all day. And it's like, oh, Rick's idea of being angry is listening to beautiful music, because it actually just reminds me like Colin got really into the Twin Peaks theme song for a while. And I would just hear it coming through, and he didn't even listen to it for a specific reason, but it's a really long theme song, and he'd play it like 3 times in a row, and it's like, enough!
I believe I have about 40 versions of the theme to the 1980s classic movie, The Last Unicorn.
Oh, good movie.
In my iTunes.
Good
because
soundtrack.
It became a song that was like popular in the EDM scene in Europe. So I have like all of these remixes of The Last Unicorn. My wife thinks I'm crazy. Dude. But I get getting into one song.
Oh, well, that just reminds me, completely unrelated, but I have a Mariah Carey Christmas Best Hits CD. On that CD is 5 different versions of All I Want for Christmas Is You. And one time, my best friend and I, we were going on a craft fair crawl, in which there were several craft fairs going on the same day, and we went to many of them. It was excellent. It was my idea of a bar crawl. All right, it was so much fun. But we made it our mission. We listened to all 5 versions of the song, and we judged our favorite. I couldn't believe there were so many. Of course, there's even more. Jean, Green D La Jean, Green D La Bean Jean. Tell me, what do you do when you're angry? Are you as angry as I am? Are you as angry as Rick, which is none? Tell me about yourself.
I get pretty angry. I think you're correct in that Rick is probably the least angriest, and I'm probably. I think you might be the angriest now at this point. I get pretty angry too. Well, obviously, I'm a former alcoholic and smoker, so for a good 20 years of my life, how I dealt with anger was I would leave and smoke a cigarette furiously. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder how I got cancer, And I would smoke a lot. I would go to the bar. And, again, I grew up on Guam. We allowed smoking in the bars. So that is my background. I would go to bars and I would smoke and have a shot of whiskey and a beer and just get super fucking drunk and just deal with my emotions that way. Very unhealthy. I don't recommend it. Again, I've been arrested twice for drunk driving. Do not do this.
You sound like a damn cowboy, Gene.
I
whiskey's and smoking.
Yeah, well, and then what's worse is in Hawaii, how I got my anger out was I go to the shooting range. there is a Coca-Head shooting range just in the shadow of Diamond Head, the mountain on Oahu, and it's free. And it is a city and county jurisdiction that's watched over by the city and county of Honolulu, and it's free. And they have people working there that can help you with your rifles and your guns. So you have to bring your guns there. Unfortunately, I did have a good buddy of mine who would let me join him, and he would let me fire his SIG rifles and his Glock and his pistols, and that was a lot of fun. So I did that every once in a while. Nowadays, I don't know. I just get stoned, you know. I don't smoke weed. I don't smoke flower anymore. So I just do edibles now. I have been angry lately, so I pop those. Sometimes I yell. I yell quite a bit. And it's tough because I do raise my voice when I start to get emotional about stuff. I think the last time I got angry and yelled about something was when I was in New York City, and I was actually hanging with Stephen Totillo. If you don't know, Stephen Totillo is the former editor-in-chief of Kotaku. He spearheaded Kotaku when it was pretty good. I think a lot of people didn't have as many problems with Kotaku around that era. And I'm not saying it's because of him or not. I'm just saying, it just happened to coincide with a good era of Kotaku where a lot of people really like their work. And he's independent now, and I was just bitching to him about something about work, and I was screaming in the middle of New York City, Manhattan. And what was interesting is that a lot of people around us in New York City stopped and were a little alarmed at the way I was yelling, which is pretty incredible if you can get New Yorkers to actually stop and wonder what the fuck's going on.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
So that made me calm down. I was like, "Oh, wait, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just talking with my buddy here, So yeah, I can get pretty ornery. I don't know what I do now. I used to work out a lot, and I should consider doing that. Going for a run. Like Micah said, biking is good, and just getting that out. I definitely used to go to the gym. I had a 24-hour fitness in Honolulu that every time I used to get mad, I would go there and just lift weights and just run my ass off, and then go to the bar and get drunk.
Balance.
Yeah.
All about
I was like, I'm so
balance.
healthy. Whatever. I can down like 15 Bud Lights, no problem. But yeah, it's been tough. I don't go to therapy anymore, so it's I can't really afford it, so I don't really know. Yeah, this has been a tough question because I don't do the stuff I used to do anymore. So a lot of it is just kind of holding on to my cat. Usually, he's always around and he always wants cuddles and hugs, and he calms me down quite a bit.
No, I mean, and those are good things to let go of. No longer smoking. Cigarettes specifically. There was a manager at UMass who everyone knew. You could tell if something was wrong because you'd see him in his car at his lunch break, and usually he'd smoke 2 cigarettes at a time. But there was one day he was smoking 3, and we were like, something major has happened, and there was like a major IT outage. But it's like somebody was like, he was smoking 3 cigarettes in his car. What happened? And we're figuring out like, oh my god, like this whole website went down or something like that. And it was just like you could really gauge the current IT, status on campus, if there was an outage by how many cigarettes he was smoking at a time. And it was hysterical. It's having 3 butts hanging out of his mouth at once. It was like a cartoon.
I've done that before, where I would just like Tobacco Max. It's awful. You're right in that letting go of these things. I was very self-destructive. That's the thing, So please, dear listeners, if you are doing that, I get it. I get where you are. I've been there before, but definitely consider thinking of a way out and doing something else. It's hard. Trust me. It took me over 20 years to stop. And I did. But yeah, you're right. I'm glad that my problem right now is I'm trying to find new ways to let go. To release my anger, besides yelling at my good friends.
Well, and
which
you say
I do
too.
Sometimes I just need a vent, So
Absolutely.
I have I have a really good friend who I won't reveal, but it's very popular, and her and I talk constantly on the phone. We would have 5 hour, like I've been having 5-hour phone conversations with my friend.
Wow.
And that's been very, very refreshing and good for my mind. It's been my replacement therapy, and she has a lot of stuff to bitch to me about too. So we definitely go on like 5-hour like venting sessions about so many different topics. It's been very helpful and fun. So
no, that's important. You jogged my memory that I usually my sister is the first person I text when I'm like really pissed off at someone, because it'll be like, can you believe this bitch? And it's like she always is my hype woman. She's always there for me.
yeah,
and
I
is
saw
really
your sister.
important.
She's awesome. I can totally believe that. So.
Right. And it's really important to have someone like that in your life that you can vent to. My sister and I often talk, and of course I'm the only woman here right now. Men are categorically solution oriented. You can't really vent to a man, because as well-meaning as it is, they want to offer solutions. And it's like, no, there's no fixing this. I just want to vent. Women operate like in the way of like, I just want to tell you about it.
Yeah.
There's no solution. But if I get the feelings out, if I get these ideas out of my head, they stop pounding around so viciously. It's really just about taking the idea and you say it out loud, and it loses a lot of power, right? Whereas, so it's like I told my sister, and she expressed the same to me. It's like, you can't vent to your spouse about XYZ because it's not something that needs a solution. It's something that just is what it is. The situation cannot be fixed.
Colin is very much like
I
can imagine Colin doing exactly that. Where it's like, okay, well, let's figure this out, and it's like, okay, we're
exactly.
not here to
And
figure anything out. Actually,
exactly, and it's from a place of helpfulness. It's from a place of love and compassion. This is not a negative quality of men in general. This is just a difference of how the brain operates. Of when I still worked my IT job, for example, and if I came home and was like venting about something, and Colin would say, well, why don't we get you a different career? And it's like, no, I don't want to do that drastic of a thing. I just want to talk about it. But it's just the difference between how men and women typically operate, which I just find fascinating.
Sorry to
because
interrupt, but when you bring that up, it reminds me of my girlfriends and the mixed messages I would always get regarding that specific issue, right? Because it took me a long, because I'm a man and I am solution oriented. So every time like my first girlfriends would come out to me, I was like, well, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? And like, I realized for like a way long time later that a lot of women just need someone for them to listen to, right?
Exactly.
And I did that for a while, and that was successful. And then I finally found a girlfriend who is very more traditionally minded. So then when she would talk to me about her stuff, she'd be like, "Well, why the fuck are you like helping me solve this or whatever?" I was like, I just thought you need someone to listen to. I don't want to whatever. And she's like, "You're such a fucking pussy." I was just like, "Fuck," I fucking hate navigating people, but that's what it is. I'm sorry, but that's where my rat is. I see. I got a little angry right there.
I was gonna say, I do like that was a good representation of the anger.
Yeah, a little bit seeped out there. That made me very angry. I was like, I'm trying to help. If you want me to have a solution, I have solutions. But but it was very, very frustrating to hear, and that's what makes dating so frustrating. Honestly.
Well,
or
even
trying
learned
to live with someone else, be compatible with someone else, right?
Yeah, I've learned to preface things to, like, sometimes talking to Colin, I'll say, there's no fixing this. I just want to vent about this frustrating thing. And I just preface it like that because it's like, no. I don't want to get agitated because you're trying to help me, because that's not what I want to do at all. But I just want you to know that I don't want help, that there is no helping it. That sometimes there are situations where it's like, this is just the way it is and it sucks. And all I want to do is commiserate that it sucks. And he totally understands that. And so we have that working, because my sister's not always available. So sometimes I got to call in the backup squad.
The preface is good. I have found that sounds like that sucks, honey, to be pretty effective in a lot of instances.
Yep.
There you go.
Right. Exactly. Because it is so much about just getting rid of that initial steam and realizing once you say it out loud, it just ends up either not being as big of a deal, or you just feel better having told someone and having them say, yeah, no, that sounds awful. Sorry that happened. Like, that's all.
Yeah, you just generally clear your head, and maybe you'll find a solution that way. But the first things first, you got to clear your head first, right?
No, and I get
Exactly.
wanting to do that. I can certainly understand you going through your own battles that day and just wanting somebody to know that you were doing that.
Sure.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Right. It's more about being seen in some regard and just not having to go through a struggle completely alone. You still maybe have to operate and navigate the situation by yourself, but having just moral support in some way. I'm a little disappointed that nobody has talked about having violent fantasies, but that's fine. This is
Well, somebody
this is
has.
this is just like, well, it reminds me of there was a constellation where I was like, if you could kill someone and get away with it, would you? And
remember
nobody
that.
said yes except for me. And it's like, I can't believe you guys. I can't believe that you guys are really telling me you wouldn't kill someone if you could get away with
I'd
it.
be so
Okay.
worried all the time.
But Dagan, well, I want to segue to you next, my
Mm.
brother-in-law,
Mhm.
another person who, in my interactions with you, Dagan,
Mm.
cool as a cucumber. I literally, a Dagan phrase is cooler heads will prevail. I gotta know how you do it. How do you not just strangle everybody that you meet in your head in Minecraft?
Oh, oh, there's anger. There's a definitely a bottled up little demon in here for sure. Like the anger is definitely. I'm glad I've been pulling the wool over your eyes, but there's a couple of things about this that this discussion definitely prompts, but that I do think about. And the first really weird thing, I don't know how you guys stand with this, but I really mine my memories sometimes to try to really dig down and remember. But the thing is, I just don't remember ever being angry as a kid, like ever. Like it just was not a reaction that was it or an emotion that was in my vocabulary until sometime later, maybe mid to late teens. You know, like when I was a kid, I would get bored, I would get sad, I would get upset, I would get nervous. You know, I definitely was no stranger to anxiety. I was an anxious kid, very thoughtful, very sensitive, but anger was not a thing. And it wasn't even the fact, I don't think I was like 100% joy, even though I can be a joyful person. I think I was probably more mercurial, like probably hovering between like a weird melancholy and happiness, you know, but anger did not play a part in there until again, I don't know if it was 16, 17, if it was just like general teen angst or was my parents getting divorced, but that's when I remember anger playing a part, you know. And again, I don't know if I could trace the catalyst, but the thing is, I know I love hearing everybody's sort of cathartic attempts at therapy and some things that could work because I do know I don't, even though I can't pinpoint my anger and I have theories, but never really been in therapy, but I do know I hate feeling angry. I don't like it. I just don't like it. So I am fortunate enough. I do get angry. You know what I mean? And I've gotten angry and I've regretted things and I've flown off the handle. And but the thing is that I'm fortunate that I have always been a deeply introspective person, very aware, not the brightest, but definitely very aware. And when I don't always know why I'm feeling something, but I always know I'm always very aware of it. And with things like anger, I definitely don't want to feel that way. I just don't. You know what I mean? I don't like myself that way. I tell you that driving and road rage, which I know is a pretty common thing for people, is definitely driving, definitely brings it out. And I think it's because I know it's because people being inconsiderate just triggers me. It just triggers me, man. And it's to a degree where the person doesn't have to cut me off. If I see a person doing something wrong, something irresponsible, cutting another person off, I get pissed, you know? And this has definitely mellowed with age, which I think anger often does, hopefully, for you. But it definitely is still there. It definitely still comes out in the car. It's definitely something I'm aware of, especially with the kids in the car, because I don't want them to see that side of me. It's cursing. Now I'm upset. You know, I'm wasting the day. I'm wasting my energy on something. It doesn't really mean anything. I've gotten better with it, but I know that's definitely what brings it out. And I don't know if it's being from New York. I don't know if it's being half Italian and half Irish. I think it was Martin Scorsese who said that, especially Italian, especially Sicilian, it's just there. You know what I mean? The anger just is there. Like it's just something about being a fiery, passionate person. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know every Sicilian, but I do know that, the Italians in my life are quick to anger. I do know that. I just don't, and maybe I am too. It's just that I don't like that side of myself. I also married a girl who's not from an Italian or Irish family. Helene's a very, she really is my better half in that she's been a very mellowing presence in my life over the last almost 30 years. She's taught me a lot. I think being a dad has taught me a mound of patience. I think I have the patience of a saint. I remember when I was a young dad, Colin getting surprised about how patient I would be with the kids when they were acting out. He'd be like, dude, how are you not losing your shit right now? And you just learn it over time. And also, I don't want to be that dad who's got to come down with the iron hand and be the strict disciplinarian. I don't think that's me. You know what I mean? I get angry. I definitely get triggered by, I would make the mistakes and yell at the kids. I never hit them, but you know what I mean? I would be too strict, or I would get too angry, or, and you regret those things. And then the regret builds up, and next time you learn to react different. And I think it's been a learning curve, but being a dad has definitely improved me as a person, I think, for sure. And sometimes I get angry enough where Helene's like, you need to go to therapy. It's not often. I just think it's kind of, and maybe it's because I'm trying to bottle up because I don't like that side of myself. I don't know. I'm open to interpretation, but I think when it comes out, it could be pretty explosive, and it could be pretty shocking, I think, for somebody like Helene, who's just not an angry person. You know what I mean? She just doesn't have that, I think there's, some people it just misses. Like Helene's sister is a lot like my sister's, much more fiery, much more quick to anger, much more vocal, much more opinionated, doesn't leave anything to the imagination in terms of like letting you know how they feel, where I'd rather mull it over. Like, is there something to be, let me take a thoughtful approach. I'd rather be less likely to be ignited. Let me think this through. Let me count 10, let me employ some kind of strategy too. And I have to say, behind the wheel, it's not like I'm going to follow somebody or threaten them or get out of the car or get into a fist fight. It's not to that degree. But I know when my heart starts racing, I start to get pissed and I'm wasting my energy on this thing. I think I've tried every strategy known to man, like count 10, take a deep breath. Oftentimes you don't see the driver, the offending driver. So just pretend it's some like hapless old lady, pretend it's some dude who just found out their wife's dying of cancer. Like I've tried everything. You know what I mean? Like just try to, even if it's some imaginary thing to placate yourself through the anger. But really, it was worse when I was younger. I don't know to the degree, comparatively, I don't know how bad it was. Definitely gets better. But I know it surprises people to hear that I could be an angry person, but I definitely can. And I think I definitely try to play it down because I just don't like myself like that. It's just not the Dagon I imagined for myself. You know what I mean? The cursing, irritated, flying off at the mouth, overreacting, I think the regret and the embarrassment of having acted like that has definitely played a part in me getting better at it. It's almost like not having, just short of having a mirror, having a video of it, of just knowing that you were a jackass. I was a jackass, and being like, that's not who I want to be. That's not who I want to teach my kids to be.
Well, to that point, I don't think I can get my wife angrier than when I'm sitting in the passenger seat and she's driving around, and she learned to drive in California, which is usually what I attribute it to. And she's very aggressive and angry at various people on the street. And I'll say, honey, what do you think that accomplished? And that's a surefire way to not having a winning conversation with my wife at that point in time. But I got to experience a lot of her driving because she drove me to my physical therapy for a year. It's sometimes an adventure, and I can certainly get in trouble with that. But I did want to, since you reminded me of it,
Yeah.
Dagan, point out one other area where I do tend to get angry, and it has affected me in this past year or two, predominantly before the stroke, but certainly afterwards. I do get frustrated and upset internally of people misconstruing my words or what I put out there on the internet, using it for their own ends, which happens in gaming a lot, right? So I'll talk about a deal or I'll talk about a contract, and then you'll find it on Reddit or somewhere else being, oh, Hogue says this about this. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to go and correct all of you all, but you are actively falsely using this sliver of a quote. And what I really want post stroke is to be useful. I want to be helpful. I want to be making the conversation better, more intelligently minded. And like, one of the things that has kept me from doing videos talking about certain topics in the last year has certainly been, and I know that I've brought this up in my therapy, that it takes so much effort for me to make something right now that I thinking that it will be misused or that it will add to the chaos of the discourse or what have you, just prevents me from doing it in the entirety, which is to me an offshoot of kind of anger and pre-frustration for those kinds of things.
Makes sense. It's understandable. It's unfortunate, but it's understandable. The other thing is,
I've gotten over it a good amount here, but it's certainly there have been a large amount of things that I wanted to talk on that I thought would just go the wrong direction, having watched it operate online.
Wow, that is really interesting. I bet a lot of people do deal with that, you know. Micah, the other thing you said about music, I'm quoting a lot of people today, and this one is really random, but I don't know why I remember this. I'm not even that fond of him as an actor, but I remember Mark Wahlberg saying something about hip hop music and how he had to stop, you know, Boston, very similar thing, Philly, New York, Boston, the East Coast, you know, anger, attitude, you know, that sort of prickly persona and everything. But he said he had to eventually stop listening to rap music when he was driving. I love hip hop music. I'm not going to stop listening to it altogether. But I remember being a little younger, probably in my 20s, maybe my early 30s at the time of hearing that and being like, yeah, I'm going to try that because, you know, when I'm behind the wheel, I'm getting angry, I'm listening to hip hop, maybe it's not helping, you know, in any event. But I do remember that. And it's a self-improvement thing with me. You know, it's there. The weird thing with me is I think for people in my life, if I can remember, I think it's always been there. I don't think it's always been there for me. I think something put it there. You know, is it worth tracking the source of that? I'm not sure. What I choose to do is just try to, you know, keep it in check. You know, I don't like feeling that way, but I wonder, a lot of the stuff that all of you said, but especially Micah, is like, maybe take a page out of that book and try to, you know, exercise it in some way instead of trying to suppress it. Because when it comes out, it's, you know, it's pretty explosive. Again, it's not physically violent. That's just not me, but, you know, I could do a lot of verbal damage, and you know what I mean? I definitely come from a long line of people that could, you know, take you apart with words and stuff like that. I think that's just being from the East Coast, you know, and seeing that, definitely, you know, seeing that as a kid and growing up with that, but also just, I think it's just kind of in your nature. You know what I mean? It's kind of in your fabric, I think. I know Mike is from more Western Massachusetts, but I still consider Massachusetts the East Coast.
Oh,
Same thing.
yeah, we're a cold and chilly people, just like you find on the East Coast. And yeah, this was excellent to kind of listen to you guys, and maybe I can work to be a little less, you know, keyed up all the time. But what I want to leave the audience with is as a cool exercise. When you're angry, you got to picture the person you're mad at. You got them in a burlap sack. And you're going to hit them on the counter really hard. Like, you have the strength, all right? You have the strength. Don't worry about it. And you're going to take that burlap sack. You're just going to hit it on the counter as hard as you can. And that's another really fun one for when you're mad at somebody that I just want to impart to you guys. That's based off a tweet that I saw one time where it was like, I want to take Alvin and the Chipmunks and put them in a pillowcase and hit them on the counter really hard. And ever since then, I was like, wow, that sounds great.
Even Theodore? He's so
I can't
cute.
stand those chipmunks. That resonated with me immediately. I was like, if I ever saw those fucking chipmunks, I'd get the mouse traps ready in the pillowcase. You're absolutely right. I can't stand Alvin and the Chipmunks. No.
The animated
this was
versions or
excellent.
the CGI feature film
Oh,
versions? Or
I
all
was
of them?
too old for those.
Oh, okay.
The cartoon I remember, the CGI movies came out at a time where I was consciously like, I'm too old for this. And I just remember being like, yeah, this is weird now. But I do remember the cartoon. I remember always being frustrated at it. I was an angry child. I was an angry child for sure. But yeah, you could picture putting the person in a bag and hitting them on a countertop really hard. That always helps.
This has been very instructive.
You know, for the next season of Only Murders in the Building, that's the clip.
Micah, always have an alibi. You're building up quite a body of work on this podcast. Get receipts wherever you go. Make sure you're on the surveillance cameras. Always
God, I
have an
forgot about
alibi.
music though. I don't really listen to music that much anymore, so that's why I didn't think about it. But I did used to listen to a lot of aggressive hip hop. 3 6 Mafia is my favorite, of course. You know, any kind of old school Southern hip hop, Southern rap, Memphis rap. You know,
I love it.
The Lost Finale
Pastor
music.
Troy, all those guys. You know,
The anger will just melt away. The Lost Finale.
yeah.
No,
The Lost Finale, maybe. You know what? The Silent Hill 2 soundtrack. In that spirit, the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack. Is pretty
Scraping
good.
metal.
Yeah, scraping metal. That's awesome. 9 Inch Nails. I used to so industrial music. 9 Inch Nails, Gravity Kills, all that stuff, and of course heavy metal. Pantera, of course. You know.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd be remiss not to mention DMX, of course.
Come on,
all right?
DMX. Yeah.
Legend.
If I'm having a really
Rest in
bad day,
peace. You know.
and I put on Where the Hood At, all right, let me just tell you, you better watch out. I don't listen to that when I'm driving. It's true. That makes me a very careless. I just you can feel it. You can feel it creeping up. Like, whoa, why am I going so fast? Like, there's something about it, but it's like because you know what it is. You know what it is because I'm driving. And I picture with every press of the pedal, and I'm mashing that person's face in with my boot every time I press the pedal. All right, and I just
see. This is hip hop music as medication. Maybe Marky Mark was wrong. You know, maybe
it makes me feel better.
It is
Sometimes you got to steer into the
is healing.
skid.
Yeah.
Not literally.
That is the advice for driving on ice, right? You got to steer into it if you start sliding.
Well, it's very similar to like the tips and tricks I've gotten on anxiety, which is to say that if you fight it to the death, it's going to be worse. And my therapist gives out like a little finger trap and says you gotta go like in a little bit and then remove it from the anxiety.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I mean, I think that's a similar kind of thing to what you're talking about, Micah, which is, you listen to the Eminem, you listen to the angry music, whatever it is, you experience whatever you're looking for out of that anger, and then hopefully you can let it go.
That's always the goal. It's always the goal. It doesn't usually work, but I'm trying.
This has been one to grow
I thank you
on.
guys for exploring this with me.
Awesome. I've learned something. Deep breath. And also, Hogue, I'm going to have you on the inevitable Last Unicorn podcast. We're going to talk all about that movie.
I'm telling you right now, I've got a copy of The Last Unicorn as sung in Gregorian chant style. So I got it all.
That's nerdy even by Dagan standards. I'm impressed. That's fantastic. Now, something funny happened. We took a little intermission here. Went downstairs to say hi to the wife who's home. You know, she's a teacher. She gets home around 3. Super pissed. Like we were just talking about how she never gets angry. Like, just from a brief 2-minute not at me. I have to clarify, but just brief 2-minute interaction. I would say, knowing Helene 28 years, top 20 angriest I've ever seen her.
Oh goodness!
And, you know what happened? I mean, I won't even go into a big thing, but my daughter, who's a senior, got the high school went with some outside vendor, some contractor who does like graduation pictures. They have a whole thing. They have a brick and mortar. You go, you get the photo shoot, cap and gown. Then they'll do other outfits. What's the kid into? Sports outfit. Lily is a dancer, so she's in her ballet costume. They do all these artful photos, and they give you a chosen package of what you want. Super expensive. Helene's already pissed about that. Came back today, the pictures. It looked like a junior high school kid took them.
Oh no!
And she's lit. It's going to be entertaining. I feel bad that she's angry, but it's going to be entertaining. But Helene's going to let this company have it. So company, be careful because she's coming for you, and she's got blood on her lips, and it's not going to be pretty. But isn't that ironic? I was just saying, she's the one who keeps me in check. I'm going to have to. It's a little role reversal thing.
It's always nice when it's not your fault, though.
I love it. I love when it's not my fault. If it was my fault, I'd be horrified right now. But I would just stay in here.
Sorry, honey. Show ran 6 hours.
All right. So listen, going back in, I think it's Hoag's turn. Great topic. Really interested to see where this one goes.
Yeah. So I was online too much, as I'm wont to do from time to time. And I saw a tweet from the Hollywood Reporter that got a lot of play on Twitter/X that said, Hollywood, meet your new A-list. From staggeringly talented TikTokers to the Instagram stars we can't look away from, these are the names who will and should be dominating the business of new and old media. And they have a big old spread, a really professional looking photo, and a bunch of people I have never seen before a minute in my life. And so I went into the article, I looked at it, and I didn't recognize anyone. And this is a topic that has come into my thought process a number of times over the last few years. But I wanted to talk to you all about kind of the culture, what used to be, I think, more of a monoculture, although I don't want to make your opinions for you, and now kind of the fractionalization or the atomization of that culture into very unique kind of content creators, right? And since we are creating content right now in this conversation, I think we're probably in a pretty unique place to talk about this. But if you look at this article, and I can link it to you if you're interested, I don't know that most people, even younger people than all of us, would recognize a ton of these folks. And even the most kind of online best connected person, I would say, is not going to recognize all 50. So the first question is like, is that an A-list? Because to my mind, the A-list of celebrities are really the people that can put cheeks in seats, regardless of whether or not you like the movie topic or plot or genre or television show or what have you, that you want to see that person. And that's why they're the A-list. And that's not
Julia Roberts movies. People just go for Julia Roberts, whatever the fuck it was about. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts, I think Tom Cruise is maybe
Tom Cruise, of course, is
the last version of that.
A-lister, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think of them that way. And that's not to take away anything from the other lists. There's lots of good actors out there. There's lots of good people in media out there. But when we talk specifically about an A-list, I think there used to be a point in time in the not so distant past where we could all kind of agree on at least a small portion, maybe not 50, of what that list comprises. And I think nowadays, because of social media, because of online content creation, because everybody being able to get out there with a mic and a telephone camera if they want to, and talk directly to millions of people, that we do have kind of an atomized society. And I wanted to ask you all how we feel about that, because I think there are good and bad things that attach to that. And maybe you think I'm just crazy and that you don't agree with that premise at all. But I'd like to have that conversation because I think it's an interesting one, because I remember in my early days at the law firm that we were just talking about earlier, like we really would get to work and talk about what happened on Lost or what have you. And I'm not trying to, this is not sponsored by Lost, folks. It just keeps coming up.
But it could be.
Again, I don't know if I told you, Rick, but my lawyer is a Lost attorney too.
Well, they had a lot of legal problems in Hawaii, if I recall correctly.
Yes, they all got arrested for drunk driving. I hired the same attorney, Robert Patrick McPherson in Honolulu, best DUI attorney in Hawaii.
Wow,
there you go.
Don't get him, folks, if you get in trouble, but don't get in trouble. Yeah.
Don't get in trouble. Yes, that's good advice.
Also, I can't believe I never told you this, Rick. But when I went into his office, he was like, "Do you like the show Lost?" I was like, "Yes, Rick." Or I was like, "Yes." I was like, "Yes, Patrick." And then he has all the autographs of all the fucking actors along the hallway, saying, "Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for getting me out. Thanks for everything you've done." And then I walk into his office, and he was like, "You want a beer?" Just kidding. And he was like, "But you want one though, right?" And I was like, "Well, what kind of beer you got?" And he opens his mini fridge, and he has Dharma Initiative beer.
Oh my God.
Special edition straight from the set of Lost. He had special edition Dharma Initiative beard, and I was like,
Oh
get the
my
fuck
God.
out.
You gotta love the DI attorney offering
Yeah.
beards to the clients.
Yeah, who got arrested from drunk driver clients. That's exactly.
Yeah, and don't
and
pay
he
me
is like the drunk driver attorney, you know. So,
pay me with props from the show. I don't need your money. I can
Yeah.
get that from some schmuck down the street. Give me a prop. Give me that angry doctor's ripped shirt. I
that-
only saw like the first season of Lost. I don't know it.
That really was the experience that I can remember having. And there was a
Yes.
certain kind of connection of being able to reference the same things to the same
Mm.
people
Mhm.
and be able to kind of shorten communication in that way. And I think looking at this list, I'm just reminded of the fact that, in my opinion, people can go and find whatever specific interest they want with such kind of granularity that it means that the person that is even close to them in what they're looking for might not go to the same content creator, might not go to the same platform to get their information or their entertainment. And it really does kind of short circuit that ability to smooth out communications because we don't have those shared reference points. And so I'm of two minds on this personally. I think it's a good thing from a kind of economics perspective. And I mean economics to mean philosophical economics, utility, goodness in the world, that we don't all have to just eat from the buffet that the networks choose to give us.
Mhm.
The democratization of media, right?
Yeah, that you can go and find somebody. And if you love the way that Colin talks about video games, or you love the way that Gene talks about video games, you love the way that Hogue says random stuff about law and business, God help you, but fantastic. It's out there. But probably you walk down the street and you say, you see the latest virtual legality yesterday, and that person's going to say, what are you talking about, bro? And so I think it's a good thing in overall that people can better meet whatever entertainment or informational needs they have. But I think it's a bad thing in terms of communication and being able to share in these things. And this list reminded me of this, and I wanted to talk to you all about it.
Yeah, this is a great one. Mike, I'll throw it over to you first. You have the youngest perspective here, and maybe the most too. Well, I'm not sure. Let me hear from you first.
So I actually know at least half of the creators on this list.
Really?
Looking at it, yeah.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
50.
yeah.
Now this is all
I
actors
actually
and
figured
actresses.
out maybe not half, maybe like 20 of them, I think. But I was counting and I reached 20. I was like, okay, I do know these people.
20 is a good number, Gene.
Yeah, I wouldn't. We can make an argument about A-list, but yeah, I would say that I do recognize a good chunk of these people. Surprisingly,
That's actually a good percentage. This is actors and actresses. I haven't looked yet.
These aren't actors and actresses. These are not.
What is this list specifically?
These are TikTokers,
creators.
fucking Twitch streamers, YouTubers.
Influencers.
These are people like
Just
Colin,
influence.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
People like
Rick
Colin,
Hope too.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
We
I'm
wish
gonna look.
we wish that they were all rich as these guys. You know, Lord knows. Yeah, I'm sure Micah wishes Colin was more rich as these guys. But yeah,
I have to look at this.
I'm sorry, Micah. Go ahead.
Oh no, well that's the thing. Looking at this list, the only one I've heard of is Rhett and Link.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I've never seen Good Mythical Morning, but I've heard of it.
Mhm.
And these are the only ones I've heard of on this entire list.
Is it the Game
is-
Grumps connection?
I've definitely heard this show. I know about the show. I've definitely heard of it, but I've never watched it.
So Aaron and Dan are good friends with Ren Link, and
okay.
And the reason why they have the Grump channel right now, and they have that whole fucking variety show. And
I love that show.
Huh?
I love the Grumps. Yeah, it's a great show.
You love the Grumps. So that was inspired by Rhett and Link. Rhett and Link told them you should have a variety show that's separate from your Let's Play channel, and just have a channel where you just eat stupid shit and try different shit or whatever like that.
It's so good.
And it worked.
It's so good.
And it worked. And then Aaron's like, yeah, all we're doing is just fucking ripping off Good Mythical Morning. That's all we're doing. So very influential guys, and they are probably the oldest people on this list, being 46. So.
Yeah, youtube.com/@thegrumps to watch their weekly variety show. It's on every Monday. It's fantastic. You want to watch them put things in a Keurig that don't belong in there, like Domino's garlic sauce. It's great. It's great. I really liked this prompt you sent us, Rick, because I remember talking about Lost, for example. I remember in 7th grade, my Spanish teacher, this really awesome lady, Miss Libby, and she would come to school so hyped about the newest episode of Lost, and only a couple kids in class watched it. We were a bit young for it, and I just mean in ways that I think the show came off as boring to me. Some of the interpersonal drama, for example, some of the soap opera-y level of drama on the show, to me as a seventh grader, was boring, mushy stuff that parents watch. But there were a couple kids in class that liked the show. And so it was funny to see her having her water cooler Lost talk with the couple kids in class that I can't believe who died this week. I can't believe this happened. And we really have lost some of that, not just because a lot of us are segmented, like working from home and just literally not congregating together, but there is so much to watch, whether it's movies, TV, streaming shows. There is so much content. There are so many actors. There are so many things on YouTube that are high quality to watch. The amount of content is such that no one can see it all. You used to be able to, you could see every theatrical release, like kind of realistically, you could see every movie that came out in the USA, let's say, like not talking about straight to video, but like you could go and you and your friends and see like every movie and be really up to date. And you add in things now like Netflix originals and Amazon Prime originals. And it's not just that there's so much content, there are so many new actors. And that's not a bad thing. But when I think of being a kid and the A-listers, Renee Zellweger, all right, Brad Pitt, George Clooney, it's just like you're thinking of Cameron Diaz, Reese Witherspoon, the names that everyone knows. Your grandma knows who George Clooney is. She's heard of him. All right. I look at this list of creators and it's not a knock to them, but it's like, I haven't heard of any of these people, but they are so niche. This one's a makeup artist. This one does dance related content. This one, and it's like, for people who are really into that, it's excellent that there's such a wealth of content for it. But these people are ridiculously famous and still so subset that it's like, yeah, this person has millions of followers on Instagram and I've never once seen them. But there is just too much to consume. No one can be an expert on everything in this day and age. There is far too much content. I do miss the days when everyone was talking about the same show, for example. It happens still, but really it just is like there's so much to watch. People will give you recommendations of a show and it sounds made up. Or people will talk about, there was a really funny tweet about two actors that broke up. And someone was like, they're just making up famous people now. I've never heard of these people. Here they are on a red carpet. They're real. Apparently they're real. But they are really just like, it's not like when, Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt broke up, all right? It's like, I've never seen this guy in my life.
Yeah.
And here he is on the front page, of Yahoo News. And I'm like, I don't know who this is. And
I think
it's not even like
for TV shows, right? Like,
yeah.
Gene, you were talking about Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And in that movie, they famously have a number of like fake TV shows that they reference. And I often think now when I'm watching a sporting event and one of the networks will show their upcoming slate of TV shows that they all look like they're fictional shows that are promoted on Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Looks like a parody. Yeah.
Exactly. Which, I mean, oh my God, it was 2 weeks ago during the football game. It's one of those like, I think it's the 911 rescue show had an ad where it was bee NATO. There was a tornado of bees was the health crisis of the week. And Colin and I were losing our minds laughing at like, I can't believe this is real television. It's just so different, partly because of how we consume TV and media. We don't all, crowd around the TV at 8 p.m. to watch the show because that's when it's on. You don't have to do that. You don't have a set time when TV happens. And I remember being the kid who missed it. Like, you didn't see the new episode of SpongeBob last night? And it's like, no, I got to wait and hope they play it again. You used to have to wait and hope they played your favorite episode of reruns, and wait for it to come back around. You used to go watch, The Office on TBS and whatever random episode they put on that day. And that's how we consume TV.
Sure.
And now you don't have to do that. You can binge Game of Thrones 6 years late and watch it all in 1 week. And you don't have that connection at all to everyone else who was tuning in at the same time every week to watch it. So that's the big part to me, is really just the fact that watching content is on demand now. And we don't have that. Like the week a show comes out and people binge through it, there's a buzz online. But if you're the person like me who isn't watching it at such a breakneck pace, you're left out. And it's just not the same as when everyone used to watch, Everybody Loves Raymond every week and see the new episode, or King of Queens every week on UPN 38 and tune in at the same time every week. It's just not the same anymore. That's the big thing for me, is the way we watch content, and losing that sense of everyone gathering together at the same time, in our own homes.
Yeah, community. Yeah, it's missing.
Succession was the last show that really did that. If you guys haven't watched that, highly recommend.
I was late to the party on the first season. It's excellent. I don't like dramas, but I did really like it.
It's funny. It's not
Did you
really
finish
drama,
it,
it's more
Michael?
funny.
I have watched Succession.
I was thinking of Severance.
Okay.
I haven't seen Succession. I was thinking of Severance. I'm like, that show's not funny at all. Gene, I was like, you sick fuck.
It starts with the rich white boy rapping Beastie Boys. So
yeah, I was like, Severance is so fucked up, man. I was like, Gene, what's going on, man?
Succession is not that fucked up.
Succession is one of those that I was thinking about potentially doing a series on my channel of discussing the various aspects of corporate law that they go through in that show.
A lot of lawyers.
They talk about bear hugs. They talk about taking companies private, and they do all these kinds of conversations. And they're mostly like 90% right.
Wow.
Which is a pretty good batting average for entertainment, talking about corporate law. Yeah. They're not 100% right. So you want to talk about anger, it sometimes rankles when you're watching something like this. But as my dad would say, they're just doing it because that's what makes it the most interesting, Rick. Yeah. Nobody cares about your stock questions.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Okay.
Their depiction of media is less accurate. In terms of how a newsroom is run and everything. There is one section later where they're like the kids are like determining or they think that if they announce the election winner that's going to determine the fate of the nation, and like maybe that's part of the story is that these people are delusional.
Right.
But the story also presents it as like just that kind of tension. But
yes,
but it is more interesting. It's fun. It's part of the drama, right? So whatever.
Yeah, no, I watched the first season and was like, well, that's a breach of fiduciary duty. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to the next 4 episodes of lawsuits. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, Succession I can recommend as well as Gene has. It's an excellent show. It's maybe not the place to go to get your corporate law knowledge, but I do think that it would be interesting to analyze from that perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I didn't love it. I gotta watch it again. I'm like the only person. I love the ending.
You gotta get on the vibe. It's got a weird vibe. You gotta get on the vibe.
I wasn't ready. Yeah, I think I was off with the vibe. Like the vibe and I weren't on the same footing, and I just saw it through, and I shouldn't have.
When my last girlfriend told me it's not like Severance, is not a business drama. Think of it as like Arrested Development, but just a little bit more serious. And I was like, that sounds great.
That's kind of a funny way to look at it.
Yeah. And I was like, that sounds fucking great. I didn't know it was like that. And I watched it. I was like, oh, this shit is Arrested Development. I'm
going to watch it again.
A little bit more serious, with more drama, but like it's just as goofy,
Well, Gene, let me stay with you
on the floor.
This.
Yeah, bore on the floor.
I just went through the list, by the way. I knew exactly one person.
Which one?
And that was Sean Evans, who's got to be in his late 30s, early 40s anyway.
38?
And I think he's brilliant. And Hot Ones is a great show. One of the better things I've seen, certainly on YouTube. And really like him. I really like him. He did a guest interview on another podcast. I thought it was really good. They got to pick his brain. And I think I doubled down on that he's a really smart dude. Only person on the list I know. Now, Gene knows a much larger percentage.
Yeah.
Much more tuned into this world. I have to say, I never downloaded TikTok. I never looked at a TikTok. Just not a big social media dude. I went in kicking and, I was kicking and dragging me into Twitter, and I have Instagram. No Facebook, no TikTok. But Gene, you have a much better perspective on this, I think.
Yeah. Reminder for people, I am a social media professional. Like this is my field. So it is incumbent on me to know who the fuck these people are, right? Because it was the reason why the Washington Post hired me, because I was online enough and I do know these platforms quite well. Again, I'm the one who started the whole. I'm the one who started a Reddit campaign, and I'm the one who made the Washington Post the first media organization to go on Twitch, So what Micah said was really interesting though, because and it is about the fragmentation of pop culture. You know, even here in our own audience at Last Stand Media, I've mentioned many times Kai Cenat, who is on this list. And so
Oh,
for
The
yeah.
only one I recognized.
yes,
Oh, literally, Gene, I had only heard of him because you mentioned the streams, and he was in a commercial during the football game last week, and I was like, the guy who streams Elden Ring? I was like, you're telling me this guy's famous? I thought he was just a random person you were mentioning. I'd never heard of him.
that's the
both.
thing. He is not a random person. He is on the level of Hot Ones, right? So I do think Sean Evans of Hot Ones is an A-lister because he is part of the media cycle for A-list celebrities to go on. That's
Right.
why he has folks like that's why all the gifts of people, that's why he has Shaquille O'Neal and
Everybody.
John Cusack or whatever, or who the fuck,
Anybody.
eating on all this shit,
I've never seen it. It's so unknown
No,
to
it's a
me.
good show.
Oh yeah, it's really good, and it's why every big A-list celebrity goes there. Kai Cenat is an A-lister because he has Kevin Hart wanting to go on his Twitch streams, so Kevin Hart can promote his own shit.
Yeah. Yep.
And basketball stars and everything like that. Kai Cenat is and used to be. I think he's been beaten by Iron Mouse, a VTuber, but they go back and forth as the number one Twitch streamer and the most subscribed Twitch streamer with
Wow.
God, like millions of subscribers. So there's millions and millions of dollars going into his pocket, right? But I mentioned Kai Cenat here to the Last Stand Media audience, and then some people are like, "Why is Gene mentioning Kai Cenat? Who the fuck is this guy?" Right? Or like, "Why is Gene so obsessed with Kai Cenat?" And it's like, I'm talking about him because he is an A-list a celebrity in this list. He is one of the most influential people in media right now because he can say that he'll show up in Washington Park in New York City and he will cause a riot that will get dozens of people arrested. That's A-list. That's A-list right there. Because he can cause a riot.
Well, that is a different definition.
That is a different definition, yes. but people did go there and start trouble, right? But then so much of our audience doesn't even know who the fuck he is.
Yeah.
He is the biggest guy, and so much of our audience is like, "Why is Gene talking about him?" I was like, "Because he is the biggest guy." And then a lot of audience, "Oh, I don't know anything about Twitch or whatever like that." That speaks to the fragmentation of media, that not
and I'm
everybody
not
is watching Kai
away.
Cenat,
I'm not trying to take away from anybody on the list. They're all successful as best I can tell. I honestly think the A-list designation is more of an issue with the Hollywood Reporter and kind of old Hollywood trying to deal with new media.
I'm getting there. I have a lot of issues with most of this list. I'm not saying that all the 20 people I know are even A-listers. I'm saying Kai, Sean Evans. I'm not even sure Rhett and Link would count, even though I think they are highly influential YouTubers in the YouTuber space. Probably among the most influential, right? Besides like your video game donkey or whatever, or your angry video game nerd. After the people like those, I would say Rhett and Link. But again, I have to qualify that, right? I don't even think Rhett and Link would count there. So there's Kai Cenat, there's Drewski, who is a TikTok comedian. He's an A-lister. There's Amelia, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Amelia, she does Chicken Shop Date, where she takes celebrities to a chicken shop and they just talk.
Okay.
So it's very much like Hot Ones, except they're not eating hot wings; they're eating regular chicken.
Wow. Okay.
And she's a British girl, and she is an A-lister because like a lot of Billie Eilish has to go on her show.
Oh wow.
She is a spot. She is like the new Ellen, for example.
Yeah.
I'm not certain that I would characterize Ellen as an A-lister, even if A-listers wanted to go there to market their stuff. So I get what you're saying, Gene, that these people are important and influential. Mm-hmm. When we talk about like the top end, again, putting cheeks in seats, I get that Kevin Hart wants to go meet with Kai Cenat. I don't think Kai Cenat is moving the needle as an A-list celebrity.
Right.
But I think Kai is. I think Kai and Sean Evans are probably the only people that would command an audience, I think, on this list.
Okay.
Lily Singh has her own TV show, or she had to have her own talk show. That bombed, but she's on this list, So it's a lot of people trying, to be there, right? RDC World, Mark Phillips is my favorite creator on this list because he is the guy who makes very, very funny comedic sketches. For example, what it's like to work at Popeyes, for example. That's probably their most popular video. or what happens when CVS and Walgreens go open up next to each other, you know, and then there's just a boundary war there, you know. But I wouldn't consider him an A-lister either, you know, because he is trying. He's trying to make movies. He's trying to make TV shows. He is trying to be an A-list, right? So I do think that this, you know, I fucking hate the Hollywood Reporter to be straight up, right? So I don't trust their judgment on any of this. And I think a lot of it is like, oh, these people have millions of followers, and it's like, like I rolled my eyes at this because I feel like that there is just too much glamorization of these creators to replace Hollywood. Yes, Hollywood is dying. You know, Tom Cruise might be one of the last few A-listers. You know, like we can even barely count. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. would count as an A-lister, right?
Yep.
But we can barely even count like Chris Evans or any of the Marvel stars as A-listers. You know, would we consider Scarlett Johansson an A-lister?
Probably
yeah. Oh, maybe. Yeah. Still, yeah.
I'm an old person
to Rick's definition, right?
Well,
I mean,
to the
people are
if Scarlett Johansson comes out with a movie, no one's gonna fucking watch that shit. No one's gonna watch it.
Are you sure?
They didn't watch the Widow movie.
Oh, nobody wanted to see that, but you know, you put her in almost anything else.
Wasn't Robert Downey Jr. in a number of flops between his Marvel stints? Wasn't he Dr. Dolittle? Wasn't he the judge?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. So even RDJ is stunted too. There's probably no real A-listers in Hollywood right now.
The A-list is the franchise.
Yeah, it's franchise. It's IP, right?
Yeah, it's IP.
That's why the Hollywood Reporter sounds like it's fucking floundering, because it's like, oh my god, well, you know, I guess we'll just cover the creators or whatever. So here's a list of how in touch we are because we're so cool, and here's a bunch of fucking people you don't even fucking know, like Amy Song or Ricky Thompson. You know, like who the fuck are these people, right?
This article, when I first saw this, had a large whiff of how do you do fellow kids to it.
No, like, because some of these two, like one of these, this Christy Scott person who is though a lifestyle mommy blogger. I am not into watching videos of families going to Disneyland type deal. So it's like, yeah, she has millions of followers, but it's such a specific thing of people who want to watch a mom take her kids to the park. I don't want to watch that. It's just one of those things of like, that doesn't feel A-list. It just feels like you hit a really niche audience and found a whole bunch of them, but it doesn't really feel mainstream.
Right.
I think it's also telling that a lot of the people that are the most popular, like Drewski or Kai Cenat, they did not get involved in this article. They didn't want to. They did not contribute to it at all, you know? Probably because they're too fucking busy, you know? And then the Hollywood Reporter actually has another article about why everyone wants to work with Drewski. To be fair, you know, Drewski also had a Like a Dragon advertisement campaign, which is very strange. But that's Sega for you. I have a lot of thought. I think what Micah was talking about, how fractured, and also what Rick was talking about how fractured media is. Look at the games industry, man. There's too many fucking games out right now, you know? There's too many people producing shit right now. There's too many entertainers. There's too much crap. So yeah, I can't go down the street, definitely in DC, and say like, oh yeah, did you see Kai Cenat's Sekiro stream? Like, no one's gonna know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? So even if I would say that he put,
I'd laugh if they did.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be hilarious, you know. So yeah, given that, like, we have definitely fallen far from this not really a monoculture, but a culture where we can gather around certain people. You know, we don't have we're a far cry from when Gregory Peck used to command an audience, right? Or even Marlon Brando, you know. But then now, you know, there are people out here. There are content creators who are very smart out right now, who still have not seen or even touched the milestones of culture, of huge pop culture, you know? On Kind of Funny right now, they're talking about The Shining. They're like, oh yeah, I've never seen this before, but I've seen it in memes and Family Guy, you know?
What?
And I'm like, Dakin, I'm with you. Mentally, I'm with you right there. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Those guys
you know?
aren't teenagers. You know what I mean?
They're not even teenagers. They're not that young. I'm not sure how. And then, you know, like Super Eye Patch Wolf is another very, very smart video essayist on YouTube, right? Very, very smart content creator. He's never watched The Godfather, you know?
Oh, I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, you're a little younger, so I get that, and you're also not a man, right?
Good use of
When I
your
meet a
time.
man that doesn't mean that hasn't watched The Godfather, I'm like, how did that
Yeah, I get
happen? You know?
suspicious of that. Yeah, that's suspicious.
Yeah, because it is like the men's Bible, right? Um, and yeah, and but yeah, he's never seen The Godfather, and he's not that young, you know. So I'm like, how are all these touchstones? These are some of the most influential pieces of media, the
Mhm.
ones that inspire everything today, right? So I'm really surprised at how people missed it, and I think it's probably because people are growing up with too much fucking media, you know, because there was SpongeBob, and then there's people were watching anime, they were watching Foolie Cooley in 2005, you know, instead of Clockwork Orange or any of Kubrick's old movies because Kubrick died by then, you know. So it's just it goes back again to the sea of garbage that Kojima talks about in Metal Gear Solid 2, where we have so much entertainment, so much data, so much people doing things that it's just really hard to keep track of. So you know, this list being called an A list is so presumptuous and
Yeah.
arrogant. And yeah, so that's why I'm coming around. Like, I do appreciate who these people are, and this is a fucking stupid article. You know, I was very kind about it on Twitter and says this is a strange article, but I personally think it's very fucking stupid, and I would never want to do this because, again, I do count creators as good friends of mine too. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
call it
well, and they got
Goshi,
the
you know.
38 million views that they wanted. I mean, that's the nature of the beast
Yeah.
at this point. But
Yeah,
since you
and then
did
they got
have
fucking the grandson of John F. Kennedy and Jackie Onassis, Jack Schlossberg. You know, so it's like this is still like it still shows how much nepotism and prestige that the industry still follows. You know,
Yeah, nepotism is an undying thing.
that's
I
still
mean,
the Hollywood Reporter. Yeah,
it's the hot.
it's still a Hollywood reporter. And look, I can bet you I don't know anything about the Hollywood Reporter, but I can bet you. But well, they did cancel their games coverage, you know, so I can bet you that like any other media organization, they are struggling to understand and catch up with the space. And this list was a silly attempt at doing that. So
Dude, I'm going to pick up the baton from you right there, Gene. That's
let's go.
exactly what when this is when Hogue sent this to us. That was the first thing that dawned on me. It was like, and I gave it the thin eye. I was like, this is old Hollywood, right? Hollywood trying to get their dirty little hands on something that's really largely going to be out of their hands very soon.
More kids, you know, you're like, ooh, more children and TikTok and YouTube and Twitch.
Has nothing
Let's
to
get
do
them
with
all
them.
into the tent, baby.
Yeah, I mean, this is like
island, you know,
the old
fucking
tastemakers,
wretches, you know,
right? Hollywood, the old tastemakers for pop culture, the sole proprietor, curator of everything we love. And, you know, for tomes like Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, People Magazine, whatever it was in the old school, trying to get their dirty little hand, trying to cash in as their influence wanes, right? And, you know, we are, and I realize I'm old, so I have to temper a lot of not only what I say, but what I think, but as everything changes, but we are in this strange, funky era, which points out exactly what you guys have discussed already, where there could be these people with huge audiences that are worth tens and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, very successful, that a lot of people never even heard of. That's so the upside is, which I think I have to remind myself of sometimes, and I've benefited from this too, even as a 50-year-old man who's largely not in touch with social media, but loves movies and loves YouTube and stuff like that, that we're in this space where there's something for everybody, which is cool. But it's not the 50s where if you ever saw a movie in your life, you knew exactly who Audrey Hepburn was. If you ever saw a movie in your life in the 80s growing up, you knew exactly who Tom Cruise was. Now there's this thing where Mike is saying there's these families that broadcast their trips to Disney World, and there's enough of an audience there for them not only to make a living, but be very successful. You know, and we're in this era too where Hollywood's trying to buy that up. Don't forget that. Also, they want a piece. You know, so they're figuring it out. I work for a company who's launching IP on YouTube now. This is one of the old animation networks. They're launching their IP on YouTube, gauging the success, and then putting it on Paramount Plus. You see, so they're figuring it out as well. We're in this weird era where household names aren't really household names, but they're getting successful. They have a big enough audience. The audience can enjoy it. They can exist. They can thrive. And again, that's something for every one thing. But that's the thing is like the Hollywood Reporter being, calling it out. I think we're seeing the death throes of things like the Hollywood Reporter, and they know it. You know what I mean? I was saying that to my animator friends 15 years ago. I was like, we don't need these people anymore. And don't get me wrong, I'm still drawing a paycheck from these people. You know what I mean? It comes full circle back to, do we have the courage to walk away and start our own things and all that? But we're in this weird thing where, as an independent content creator and somebody who's an artist and wants to share their work with an audience, whether I'm talking about my artwork or my podcasting, whatever, it's very exciting because you can do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the upside, besides having an audience for everything under the sun that you could possibly be interested in, which is really cool. But the downside is that, a lot of this stuff is, I think what Micah was saying earlier, which kind of struck me as someone who I think is pretty young for that mentality, but Micah's a little bit of an old soul in being like, there's a loss of community. There's that loss of like the excitement around the water cooler every Monday when we could talk about what we saw on the weekend. Because now you can just binge watch and all that sort of thing. So I guess, Hollywood's figuring it out. The new content creators, these young people that are so influential, are figuring it out. We as an audience are figuring it out. There's kind of a lot there. I feel like for me, who could be pessimistic about this sort of thing, definitely set in my ways. I'm definitely old. It's important for me to look at the positives and the upside. And I think those are some of them that I listed off. But it is interesting in this world of, Timothy Chalamet's and Sydney Sweeney's and Anya Taylor-Joy's that a lot of these people aren't too far behind as far as, cashing in. You know what I mean? They could live. I mean, why can't one of these huge content creators, they could live right next to Sydney Sweeney? I mean, they're not doing that much worse. So there's this weird leveling off financially. And maybe we're in this weird thing too, is like if Sean Evans might be a weird example, but take your average movie star, not just an actor or an actress that's sought after, but a movie star in today's standards, 2024. They walk down the street and maybe you're a TikTok influencer. You have a huge audience, lots and lots of money in the bank. You're doing great. You walk down the street. Sydney Sweeney walks down the street. Sydney Sweeney's going to get recognized twice as much. She probably doesn't have that much more than you. So it's kind of cool that you could have a level of, if not anonymity, at least some sort of social autonomy while still being a millionaire many times over. That's kind of neat. You know what I mean? I could only.
You just reminded me of a big missing person on this list. It's I Show Speed. Because when you're talking about people gathering around, I Show Speed can travel the world, and he will have a Beatlemania type of crowd following him.
Wow.
He went to the Philippines, and the Jollibee there was crowded. It was people, Filipinos outside screaming when he ate a piece of chicken there. So
did he broadcast that he was going to be there?
If some of these celebrities will, again, Kai Cenat with his riot in New York City, I Show Speed with Filipinos in the Philippines following him. So
that's crazy.
The audience is there, and there is a kind of something that can resemble that old mania that we saw in Beatlemania. It looked like it was straight out of Hard Day's Night, but bigger.
That's insane. So we're reaching that level.
But here's the problem, though. There are more people in this world.
That's also
there are more humans in this world, and that's the issue.
And Audrey Hepburn wasn't going to the Brown Derby and saying, "I'm going to be here at dinner at 6:00 on TikTok in 1953." These people are like, you know what I mean? They're causing these. They're like, "Oh, is anybody going to be at such and such a place?" Maybe they're broadcasting.
That's a great point, though, because you're right. Because they're able to create this. They're able to like just conjure up like a Beatlemania.
That's a great point, Gene.
With that, you made the great point. Yeah,
the social media kind of plays back in. And we're in this weird era too. What do you guys think about this? Like, I follow big YouTube channels. They're not as large as some of the people we're talking about, but I'm a big car guy. I like a YouTube channel called Donut Media. who's, a bunch of young guys, very smart writers, auto journalists, but mostly in their 30s, car experts. They know, these guys know how to write. They're great entertainers. They know how to turn a wrench. This channel got, Donut Media, for instance, got very big, millions of followers.
They have a
They're getting
playlist in
big
the
enough
crew.
now. What'd you say, Hogue?
They have a playlist in the crew. That's why I know them.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. But these guys are good. Maybe they've been around 10 years. I'm probably giving them a few too many years, but let's say for the benefit of the doubt, the Donut's been around for 10 years. They're big enough now where their talent's spinning off, forming their own channels, becoming even more famous and more wealthy, doing their own things, getting millions of followers within weeks. You know what I mean? So now we're seeing this. We're in this era where the big channels are spawning off talents, leaving and do. So you know what I mean? This is definitely a weird era that's fully in the offing.
Well,
I find it very interesting, and also in the same breath wanting, wishing that there could be return to some sort of normalcy like we grew up with, but I don't even know why. I don't even know if that's just being.
Flip it.
Like change could be good.
Just kidding.
Well, I wanted to ask about how much nostalgia plays a role, because you were referencing like The Godfather and Shining, and I can understand why. I mean, we're of a similar, if not identical, vintage, and that's a little bit before we were born, in all likelihood. But it's a long time ago, sitting here right now. So at least when I think about it, I think, okay, so I was watching the '70s movies, but I wasn't watching The Bridge Over the River Kwai. I wasn't watching Cleopatra. I wasn't watching like Another Decade Back. So are we also at least somewhat tinted by the fact that we're just old?
Well, that could be it, but here's the thing. Maybe I'm just different, right? But when I was 20 something years old, I was listening to music from the 1930s. I was watching the movies from the 1940s. Chuck Berry was my favorite artist. I right here. I have on my record Robert Johnson, who is the creator of rock and roll, right? But he's a Delta blues artist. He is a guy who went to the crossroads and sold his soul to the devil to learn how to play guitar. Stories like that fascinated me. So I would reach way past Indiana Jones and Star Wars and The Godfather, back into I'm listening to Nirvana in the 90s, right? And then I find out, Kurt Cobain was really inspired by the Sex Pistols and Led Zeppelin. Why is one song called Aero Zeppelin on Incesticide? Let me investigate this Led Zeppelin band. And then so I listened to Led Zeppelin, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible music, And then I find out, Led Zeppelin was inspired by Robert Johnson, by Leadbelly, the old blues masters. B.B. King, of course, is the most popular one today, right?
Sure.
So I would go back and listen to those. But I think a lot of people, I get frustrated whenever I meet people who don't think like that, who aren't interested in the etymology and history of their favorite things.
I understand.
It's crazy to me that you can only you fucking you play all these Grand Theft Auto games, these crime games, and you're never once curious. Oh, but what about The Godfather, though?
I think a curious mind is an asset. I do. I think that is the way we should enjoy our favorite things in the world. I just don't. I guess I'm not in the same place where I think that it's like a requirement, or that I am frustrated by people that don't go down that road. I think you would benefit from it, certainly. But it doesn't surprise me that folks at a content creation streaming channel have not watched some of what we consider to be kind of pillar pieces of pop culture, like The Shining or Godfather.
Yeah.
But then if their main goal or their main drive to make content is to cover pop culture,
I don't watch Kind of Funny.
It's kind of your
I'm not just talking about Kind of Funny. I'm talking about like all kinds of people on fucking Last Stand Media. They're like, I'm, I don't mean to sound elitist, but I probably sound that way, but I'm always frustrated with people who aren't as curious about history as I am in terms of pop culture and art.
I think it's a good asset.
Yeah, and I think
so
it does.
now.
And to be clear, a lot of it was started by education. I did take classes that talked about these stuff, and so I did learn about it. But But even before I took the classes, I was getting into Delta blues in high school. I certainly didn't talk. Nobody was fucking talking to me about the blues in Guam.
Yeah.
So, and I'm in Guam, for fuck's sake, the Pacific Island. Like I didn't even have the internet back then. And
well, I would argue
somehow found this stuff. So that's why it's like I get frustrated when it's like, oh yeah, we don't. I don't know. I do sound like an old man rat right now. So
no, it's okay. I would argue honestly that curious mind, that asset, is one of the reasons you've had the success that you've had. I would recommend it to everybody. I would.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I wanted to talk about on this topic, Dagan gave the positive version of this kind of fractionalization and finding exactly what you want and being able to have this entertainment on your time frame and not wait for the appointment viewing. But I want to talk a little bit about tribalization and echo chambers and bubbles as part of pop culture too. We see this talked about around more serious topics, right? We have the 60 Minutes piece. We have the Meet the Press section that'll talk about, the politics is too tribalized and society is fracturing. How much of a role does pop culture play in this? How much of a role does being able to stream whatever you want, whenever you want, playing it? And how much of a role does the inability to communicate as smoothly as we used to with each other through references or otherwise play into that kind of process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We make Colin and Chris always make Seinfeld references all the time, right? How long is that going to continue? But that happened because so many people gathered around Seinfeld at the time, right? Simpsons references. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, you can carry entire long conversations only making Simpsons references. But if I make Kaisenat references right now, no one's going to know what
it takes time.
I have to be honest, Gene. I only know him as the guy that's like laying on the floor and like kicking his legs while they're on a very elaborate set.
Yeah.
Of a video game. Like that's what I know.
He is also the guy who popularized the term Riz.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that's pretty huge. But then
that's hit my kid's middle school. That counts for me, man. No cap.
So he is the guy who started the word Riz.
See, that's a really smart one, I think, in terms of modern discourse, because it's just a shortening of charisma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that works for the kids, that works for the olds. Riz is a good one.
It's a good word. It definitely works in both ways. It's a quality word.
Good job, Kai.
Thank you, Kai. Thank you for the contribution to society.
Just some of the references that like, okay, Simpsons cromulent, being like, oh, that's a very cromulent word. I said cromulent on a show and someone was like, oh, a new vocab. I'm going to write that down. It's like, this is a Simpsons reference. But it's the same as you mentioned, Gene, with Seinfeld of you make a reference and people around my age generally will still get it. People younger than me will be like, huh? But like even at work, there was a guy named Sam I worked with, really nice guy who is 5 years younger than me, I think. And I called him Sammy Davis Jr. and he thought it was a name I made up. And one day he came into work, he goes, did you know Sammy Davis Jr. was a real guy? And I was like, oh my God, you didn't? Like you thought I was just made up a nickname for you? Like you thought I just started calling you Sammy Davis Jr. Which, I mean, is that something I would do? Yeah. But that's not the point. The point was that I really couldn't believe that this kid had never heard of Sammy Davis Jr. and we're only 5 years apart in age. And I'm not saying I'm some Sammy Davis stan.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why this conversation overlaps so much with like nostalgia and aging up, right? Like if social media doesn't happen during our lives, if this doesn't become phones and bifurcated A-list content creating celebrities, would we be able to have still a similar conversation that just says, oh, my references are gone because we're getting older? And I think that's certainly part of the conversation. I tend to think it's both. I tend to think that there is this kind of fractionalization and that it probably has some bad second order outcomes to go with the increase in utility and happiness that comes from not having to make sure you wait until 9 p.m. on Wednesday to find out what happens to Jack and his dog. But reasonable minds can differ on these topics. That's why I like talking about them.
Yeah, there's two sides to the coins for sure. I mean, what Gene was saying earlier too really spoke to me in the fact of today, no matter what your age is, right? The ease of accessing everything, whether it's Spotify for music or YouTube breakdowns if you want to learn about movies, or just going on TCM on HBO and watching Lawrence of Arabia. You know what I mean? Like, you could access everything so easily. There's no analog crate digging, or, you know, having to dig in the basement for your dad's 8 tracks if you want to hear like old Led Zeppelin. Like, it's so easy now.
Yeah, I see Led Zeppelin footage I've never seen before, but that's because the internet is here now, you know, and the internet's been around for 25 years, you know.
Right.
Back then, I don't know, I had to find VHS tapes of Led Zeppelin, you know. But that. Thank you, Dagan. That really does get to the core of my frustration, in that the ease of information to access all of the history and all of this fascinating music and art is there, but we're too busy watching anime and look, again, I love anime, right? But I'm just saying, I'm speaking to the glut of content out there right now, and a lot of people aren't choosing to do not even the extra work, just be a little curious, you know.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm coming from. I'm not saying everybody should watch the fucking Godfather or The Shining or whatever. I'm lamenting this lack of curiosity, the incuriosity of society today.
Gene,
That's
we
well
already
said.
heard you say only men should watch The Godfather. I was there.
That's gonna be the clip that goes viral for sure. So,
I do know a woman that loves The Godfather.
yeah.
Like, one
It's a
woman
good movie.
specifically. I never had this conversation with, you know, extended amounts of females, but I do know one woman that loves that movie, the
Mhm.
first one specifically, which is interesting because it does tend to be pigeonholed as a guy movie. But I know, like, it's the standards. You know what I mean? You could apply that to music. You can apply that to probably art. You could definitely apply that to movies. You know, you should know the standards. You know, I'm traditional, very set in my ways. But because I know that I'm kind of like this older guy who tends to be bogged down in his ways and think the old way, you know, that old man shouting at cloud thing, I tend to challenge.
Also a
I do
Simpsons
go in and
reference.
challenge myself.
Yeah.
Also a Simpsons reference.
Like, I hate TikTok without ever having witnessed it. That's not right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I see from afar my kids enjoying it, but I've never really delved into what's going on TikTok. And the more I think about it, it's like making short form movies. It sounds fucking amazing. Like, what I could do with that.
Here's where my gripe from history and not knowing history comes from, because it's very recent, right?
Yeah.
I'm watching all these Silent Hill 2 reviews and review discussions, right? And I keep hearing over and over again, oh, but I never played Silent Hill 2 back then, or whatever. And that you've been working in the games industry for how long, and you didn't play Silent Hill 2, or you miss like some of these iconic games, but you've been working in the industry for 20 years.
Yeah.
How do you miss this game, right? I've
I
only been a
think that I
games
didn't
journalist for
love it.
5 years, and I spent most of my 20s doing drugs and going into the clubs. I still played Silent Hill 2. You know, I still found a way to play Silent Hill 2. How are people in the industry missing these games?
Yeah.
You know?
I have to admit, if I were on drugs, I think the last game I would want to play was Silent Hill 2.
That's probably why I love Silent Hill 2 so much.
That sounds like a bad
That
time.
could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. It's kind of your job. I definitely see it that way too. And I've definitely, you know, I've been paid to talk about video games for years, and there's definitely standards that I've missed that I'm embarrassed about. But everybody has that backlog. But yeah, but I know what you mean, Gene. It's like, if you talk about movies
Mhm.
on a YouTube channel, and that you're not even if that's your main source of employment, but if that's what you do and you're serious about it, then yeah, you should probably see all the Godfather films. It's like meeting that person that's never seen Star Wars. It's like, wait, what? How is that possible?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, why? But that's the bigger question. It's like, why?
Active
So
Aren't you
scary.
curious?
Mhm.
It
Yeah, why
scared
aren't
me as
you
a
curious
child,
about
so I
it,
never
man?
went back.
Yeah. All this talk about The Godfather being the greatest movie of all time, and you've never been curious about seeing it, you know?
Oh, yeah, I'm curious.
Oh,
I
I'm not
just
talking
been
to you about
lazy.
you, Mike. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but that's the thing. It's like I represent it. It's like I am curious, but I'm also lazy. Like, I love Rachel Ray, for example, and her favorite movie is Goodfellas. And I've always wanted to see it because I love
Oh.
Rachel Ray so much,
Mhm.
but I've never seen it.
Mhm.
And
You're
I'm
gonna
just
love it.
lazy. I'm just a lazy old bag.
You'll like
is
Goodfellas.
classic.
You're gonna love
You'll
it.
probably like it better if you see Godfather first.
Yes.
But you'll like
Yeah.
them both, I think.
Going in order, yeah. That feels
yeah,
like
yeah. Go in order, because Goodfellas is a much more frantic, crazy movie. So.
certainly is.
It is arguably better than The Godfather, I would say, but you know.
It
Yeah.
has more direct kind of plot beats than The
Yeah.
Godfather. I think one thing that
It's probably definitely more immediately entertaining for sure.
I think that one of the things that probably prevents people from watching the Shinings and Godfathers of the world is that they are kind of slower paced. It is a different kind of storytelling than a
Mhm.
lot of what we expect today.
And that's why I lament, because I talk about Silent Hill 2, and you're like, how could you play those garbage old games, And it's like, it does go back to literacy, right? It's like not wanting to read Shakespeare because the language is too hard to understand, And I understand that Shakespeare also had to tailor a lot of his language too, if Shakespeare was even a real guy, but those
Or girl.
scripts had to be changed to adapt to new audiences. But even then, it's like there's really an incuriosity of history and culture, and I bemoan that, and it gets worse because with with misinformation. Think about all the good shit that we've lost over the centuries. I lament that
Yeah.
too. I don't even know they exist. They're gone.
Oh, yeah, there are so many people who talk about there are movies, from the 30s or 40s that are completely lost
All gone.
forever
Yes,
because
yes.
either they intentionally taped over them or
Mhm.
they were just seen as like you watch it once and no one's going to want to see it again. They just throw
Yeah.
them out. There are
Disposable.
so many things like that where
Mhm.
they're just gone and we never got to even experience them at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I actually had a nice conversation with the creator of Prince of Persia, and the first game I ever played, Karateka, where
Oh,
he
nice.
also made a game called the Orient Express.
Ah.
And it was about the Orient Express, and he really, really wanted to depict the Orient Express's last ride. So he went to the German company that built the train for, the the layouts, right, and just the architecture of it. And they said, "Oh no, we threw that out in the 40s, or the 50s." And they're like, "Why?" It's like, because we didn't have space for it, so
So
it,
weird.
it was cheaper that way. So he was like, "Fuck, you built the fucking historical train, and you didn't give a shit about that." And then so he had to put out a classified ad, and he found a bunch of old engineers that worked on the train, and they said, "We kept it."
Oh, wow.
So here is the schematics for the train, and then that's how he was able to make the game.
That's cool.
And he was like, he was only like what 23, 24 when he made that, and he was like, that was when I learned that history is not being kept by companies or institutions. It's kept by passionate people who want to keep it alive, and it's sad.
And
Yeah.
Dagan, for what it's worth, Last Express is maybe the first, certainly one of the most prominent, like rotoscoped animated video games. If you haven't seen
there you
it,
go.
Oh, no, I have not.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a very labor intensive process. That's
Yep.
incredible.
Yep.
I think they have behind the scenes of like the tracings that they did for all the
Mhm.
stuff in Last Express. It was a
Oh, I gotta look at
crazy
that.
game from back in the day.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
look at that. I don't know it.
groundbreaking in terms of like being a visual novel type of or adventure game, Yeah, but that's what Mechner games have always been. Karateka was also rotoscoped.
Oh my god,
And Prince of
that was
Persia
one of my
too.
first games.
Obviously Prince of Persia. Prince of Persia. The Prince of Persia was his little brother, and the princess was his sister.
Oh, I didn't know they were connected.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
It's all family.
Oh, that's really that's super.
He filmed his little brother climb on the car, and that's how the animation of climbing up ledges came from.
Yeah, it was beautifully done for back then.
Yeah,
One of my first PC. You know what dawns on me as you guys are talking? You know what's a good compromise for all this? If there's an album or a movie or a video game that you haven't tried that you feel like is a legendary thing, maybe something that you shouldn't have missed, just you don't have to even see it through. Just try it. If it's not for you, you'll know right away, but at least give it a shot. Then you could say that's a nice compromise because maybe Micah finally puts on The Godfather begrudgingly and is like, what is this shit? She got 20 minutes in. It's not for her. She tried it though, right?
That's how I get my
kind
wife
of
to
nice.
watch things. If she's in the room and they just go on the TV, sometimes she stays.
There you go. Yeah.
It's tough. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry to sound like an old man ranting, and if for folks who haven't watched or played the seminal games, I realize how I sound, that I'm looking down on you, and I apologize for that. I really do.
You're more so criticizing though people who work in the industry, and if you're going to come across as an expert, but which is why I make it very clear, like on Punching Up, for example, that I represent the average consumer. I have never worked in games professionally. I am not a professional at this at all. I am on Punching Up every show as the general consumer who's playing the newest releases, picking from my backlog periodically. But it's like, but I'll never tell you that I'm an expert in anything. And that's the difference, though, is that if you've worked at IGN for 20 years and you have missed so many major releases, it's like, are you really the expert? I'm still interested in your thoughts, but maybe tailor, how you approach this, because it's really more so people that present themselves as being, the tastemaker, but without having tasted vanilla ice cream first,
Oh, I like that. That's very well said, Micah. You know what my overarching emotion is about this list? Jealousy. I'm just so jealous of these kids' money. I'm going to be quite honest with you.
It sucks that we're grinding here over Last Time Media, putting out smart, quality, funny content. And we don't live in mansions like these fucking people do.
I'm
we're
happy
also not the
that they
grandchildren
found their
of fucking
audience.
Jackie Onassis and John F. Kennedy either. Jesus fucking Christ. But yes, Micah, you're right. Like most of my venom does go toward people who purport to be experts in the field and haven't really done the legwork. Like if Dagan tells me he hasn't played the Halo trilogy, which he has now,
Yes.
but if he told me back then he didn't, I'd be like, oh, that's fine. I'm not going to judge Dagan for doing it. But if Dagan doesn't know who, like, for example, like legendary Disney animated Ward Kimball or whatever it is, then I might be like, huh.
I'm impressed, Gene. That's not a name that everybody knows. I'm impressed. Yeah,
exactly. See?
It's okay. We're purists. Yeah. It's okay to be a purist, but you don't. As soon as I feel like I'm yelling too hard at the clouds, then I sort of check myself, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe the kids are on to something. You know what I mean? Maybe the kids are on to, and maybe they're not. So I try to. It's checks and balances, but I think it all comes down to what you guys already said. Very, very. Cleverly, I think you were spot on with the fact that it's just curiosity,
Well, and I think that your recommendation is a smart one. I think we can give Constellation homework. If there's something that you think it should be on your bucket list that you've always thought about watching or listening or playing,
sure,
give it a try before the next Constellation.
Yeah, let us know.
Good chance.
I like that.
Let us know in the comments if there was something, or if you haven't even watched it or played it, but it is just the thing you want to see. Let us know, and we're not going to shame you. Like your listeners, it's fine. You're busy people. That's totally fine. I'm not going to shame you, and I'm sorry if it sounds like I do. So
I'm in no position to shame anybody. So I promise you, I'm not going.
I hear you. I mean, that was the cool thing about Knockback was Colin keeping me honest with video games that I missed, and I could do the same with him with movies that he sometimes missed.
Yeah, Colin's watched a lot of movies. That's crazy.
We're going to get a lot of shit, though, because Lost came up a lot on this episode of Constellation, and Colin and I never even got close to finishing it.
That's my fault.
I'm happy to hear it. I love hearing Lost brought up at random occasions because I have a strong connection with that show.
It was one of my favorite shows for a good portion of its run. Like many television shows, that's usually what I will say, is that for the most part, I like them much of the time.
Yeah, it was a show that really kind of started that whole water cooler, week by week conversation.
Definitely,
it proved that serialization could work.
Yes, serialization. It was Dragon Ball for real people.
I like saying it.
It was Dragon Ball Z for people who don't like Dragon Ball Z or who would not be into it. But that's what it is. Next time on Lost. Rest in peace to the guy who announced that. By the way, he just died.
Oh,
is that right?
Yeah, next time on Dragon Ball Z, that sucks.
Oh, legendary voice. Great. Yeah, seriously. Now listen, guys, I have my topic. I think we're going a little long. We're going on just about 4 hours. I'm totally okay with saving my topic for the next one. It's a little unconventional to only do 3 topics for Constellation, but it's been done. It's not a first. I don't want to. It's Friday, getting close to dinner time. Don't want to keep my people here too long. But let me toss it around. I'm going to take this topic to another episode. Again, this could be applied. This is not a timely thing. You talk about my topic. I won't spoil it. Maybe it'll be next week. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll wait for Gene to be on again. But let me kick it around to my co-hosts here. Say goodbye. Closing thoughts. Weekend plans. Whatever you want. Gene, I'm going to start with you, my friend. It was great to see you again. It was great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, good to see you again, Dagan. Very, very relieved and happy to see your face. Weekend plans. I'm going to be playing Metaphor ReFantazio.
Yeah, you are.
I've had a review copy for the last 2 weeks, but I did not want to play it because I did not want to rush through it. I thought it would be fun to just play with the rest of the community. So I did start it last night. I did start a little bit of it 2 weeks ago, just to touch it. And I was like, cool. And then, but now I really started in earnest last night. Holy shit, that really fucking good game.
That is the
Wow.
correct thought off the demo for that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could have played through the end of the demo, Gene.
Yeah, the demo was longer than what I played 2 weeks ago, so I'm still safely within the demo period of the game right now. But like, I'm seeing what everyone else saw in the demo. Awesome world, really good writing. The combat feels really fun. Unbelievable. This might actually, if this keeps up, I can see why people are saying this is the best game of the year. So
It's certainly got a case for me so far, and I am right just past the demo. At this point.
Also, I think I'm starting to admit to myself that I don't really love the Persona series. Because I loved Persona 4. I've been trying to play Persona 5 for like 8 years, and I still don't have like a strong inclination to go back to it. Metaphor is perfect because Metaphor still does that, but it's not. I'm not a fucking high school teenager anymore. I'm just done with that. I just don't want to be a high school teenager. I don't want social links with romance or everything like that. This is a straight fantasy world. So
well, Gene,
no romance in this one. So that's a huge part for me.
I do have to warn you about social links, though.
That's okay. That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, but romance, and I hear that it's not as pressurized, where it's like, oh, there's these different avenues or whatever like that. It's a little bit more free form, where you don't really need a guide, and you'll get satisfactory outcomes either way. So it's like, okay, that's cool. That's perfect. I hate managing social links and day by day stuff all the time, especially with the relationships. So anything not tied to relationship anymore, that's great. So I think Metaphor is it's like they made Metaphor for me, So I'm really excited to play it.
I hope you feel that way after you get all the relationships, but I do like this game.
Yeah.
Guys, making me feel bad about myself because I've never played a Persona game. Micah, let's say goodbye to you, my friend.
You would like a Persona game, I think.
I know.
Oh, I think so. Persona 5 is what got me into it. The soundtrack. So good. I played 5, 4, and then I played Persona 3 Portable when that came to Switch.
Oh, wow.
The soundtrack is immaculate, of course, for 5. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's better. I think it's better than 4, but yeah.
I loved it. Of course, as Brad is always very upset, I don't often hear a lot of the soundtrack to games because I'm usually listening to a podcast or Game Grumps or something. But I try and always give it a taste. I try to always play like the first hour of a game without headphones, and I'll be like, all right, that's enough. And then I'll just start, like I'm playing Zelda Echoes, and Dustin is tweeting about how good the soundtrack is. And I was like, oh, is it? Because I've just been listening to Game Grumps for the past 10 hours. But
my topic was almost how music impacts your enjoyment of pop culture movies and games.
Oh, we got to circle back to that when I'm not here.
I know it. That would have been a disaster.
Yeah, let's make sure Mike is not on there for sure.
Now we're going to
that'd be a good one for Brad.
That would be a good one for Brad.
Hogue, my friend, it was great to see you. It was great to have you on. I hope we could do it again soon.
Absolutely. It was great to be here. I am also very excited about Metaphor. I've also been enjoying the Vessel of Hatred expansion to one of my favorite games of last year, Diablo 4. Speaking of great music, the new expansion, which I haven't seen referenced in any of the reviews, has some really awesome jungle beats. The new area is a jungle biome, and it has some really wonderful music. I love Diablo 4.
I should go back to Diablo 4.
And this expansion has it at kind of the height of its powers so far.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'll be playing more of that.
But I was waiting for better expansions, and might be it.
It's really good.
It's fucking shattered space right now. Jesus.
Well, I want to like Starfield more than I do a lot of the time. I like kind of the concept more than playing the game. But I'm going to play those games, and I'm going to play through Silent Hill 2 because it's October, right? October is Halloween time in Hogue House. In Michigan, it's overcast clouds. It's getting pretty brisk in the air. I know it's a lot the same in a lot of places in the United States right now. I love this season. We watch horror movies with my friends and now with my oldest daughter, who's okay with them.
Are you a pumpkin spice guy, Hogue?
I don't seek it out. I don't reject it. It's a good flavor.
It's acceptable. Okay.
I love pumpkin spice so much that I saw that there were pumpkin spice M&Ms, and I sent it to my dad and sister. I was like, if you find these, tell me where. They're in another state, but I was like, if you see these at a store, if they're at Walgreens, if they're at CVS, you tell me because I'm on the hunt for these. I love
I'll keep my
pumpkin
eyes
spice.
out for you, Micah. Better you than me. You could have all.
Put a pumpkin right up my ass. I love fall.
All right, we gotta sign off. Let's go.
Okay.
That
We
sounds
went
like the
2 minutes
to end
too
all
long.
the episodes.
Yeah.
We're almost out. Well, I'm glad you guys are gonna have fun over the weekend. I'm getting dragged into the weekend kicking and screaming. I gotta clean my garage out. I've been promising for a long time. There's no way around it. Dumpsters in the driveway. So remember me, pray for me, have fun for me, you guys and everybody else. And that's it. It was a pleasure. And that's our time. Another Constellation episode in the books. And I'm proud of that. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia for early ad-free access. I had a thought about this. You guys pay a little something, insert amount here, get our wisdom, our takes, stock tips, romance advice, all early, right? There's no FOMO with that.
To be clear,
Right?
we don't give stock tips.
I will give stock tips. I'm not going to give good stock tips. I don't know anything about it, but I will be DM me. I'll give you stock tips. I'm not saying they're going to be good stock tips.
All right, they're
But-
not official investment advice.
No,
Not
but
official.
Call
At your
get
risk.
me thinking about Ubisoft though. He did bring that up. I'm like,
Yeah, I heard him on that.
yeah.
I mean, if you want stock tips, I can tell you which brand of, store-bought stock is the best. I like College Inn
That
quite
counts.
a bit, as an alternative to Swanson's. Or that's what we're all talking about.
That's what I was
stocks.
talking about.
chicken
I'm
stock.
worldly.
Yeah.
I'm smart.
What were you guys talking about? That's what I was talking about.
That's the stock market right there. It's just all sorts of broths.
On that note, laststandmedia.store has the merch. We talked a little bit about merch. Go buy some merchandise. And that's really about it, guys. Listen, for Micah, Gene, Hogue, I'm Dagster Moriarty saying thanks for joining us again. We'll see you next week. I'm going to hold you to it. You better be there. We don't
Easy
do
to
this
know.
for nothing, right? We don't. I mean, we want to be on this influencer list. Can you help us a little bit?
Yeah.
Throw us a
Rate
freaking
review
bone
on
here.
on podcast apps.
Get the Constellation team on the A list.
I'll settle for the B list, G list, whatever.
Really, any
Come
letter
on,
that
Liz.
suits your preference is fine. We just want to be on that list.
Any list is fine.
No, I'm on a list, all right. After everything I said today, I'm on a list, all right.
Goodbye to you guys. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. LSM in the house. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.